Jian Wushuang did not know. The 8 Emperor Swords were extremely intelligent and they knew how to choose their master. Moreover, they were Emperor Swords which were born specially for the Emperor Sword principle. In the Emperor Sword Palace, they would not care about experts who practiced normal sword principles. Only people who had comprehended the Emperor Sword principles via the sword grave had the right to be their master. For example, back then, the founder of the Emperor Sword sect had managed to get one Emperor Sword to recognize him as its master as he had comprehended the Emperor Sword principle. However, the founder of the Emperor Sword sect's affinity for comprehension was limited. After spending 1,000 years of time, he had only barely managed to comprehend the first move of the Emperor Sword principle. Hence, he had barely achieved the requirement for them to recognize him as their master. But what about Jian Wushuang? Similarly, it had also been 1,000 years. To be exact, he had merely used 870 years of time. With that, he had managed to comprehend the first 3 moves of the Emperor Sword principle. As such, his talents for comprehending were many times higher than that of the founder of the Emperor Sword sect. Hence, those Emperor Swords had fought amongst one another to recognize a genius like him as their master. The 8 of you? As Jian Wushuang looked at the 8 Emperor Swords which were shaking crazily, he laughed indifferently. Since all of you are willing to recognize me as your master, why don't all of you leave with me? It was obvious that Jian Wushuang had the intention to take away all the 8 Emperor Swords. It should be known that the 8 Emperor Swords were 8 extremely powerful Chaos Divine treasures. However, after hearing Jian Wushuang's words, the 8 Emperor Swords became vehement. Eh? Jian Wushuang's expression changed slightly, and he continued to communicate with the 8 Emperor Swords. As for those experts who were not too far away, when they saw such a scene they had puzzled expressions. Moreover, most of them were also looking at Jian Wushuang with envy. That's right. It was envy. They had done their very best and they yearned for even one Emperor Sword to recognize them as its master. In the end, none of them Emperor Swords was willing to accept them. As for Jian Wushuang, the Emperor Swords fought among one another to recognize him as its master. Such a difference was really extremely huge. All of a sudden, humph! With a cold snort, the expression of Jian Wushuang, who was communicating with the 8 Emperor Swords, turned cold abruptly. He then waved his big hands and he completely ignored the 8 Emperor Swords, no matter how much noise they made or shook. After that, he turned his body and left without turning his head back at all. The 8 Emperor Swords continued to make noises intensely. However, after that, they returned to their own positions in succession and in no time, they quietened down. Such a scene had caused everyone present to become dumbfounded. Sword Emperor, what's going on? Luo Xianxia walked in front of Jian Wushuang immediately. Just now, those 8 Emperor Swords wanted to recognize you as their master, right? That's right. They had planned to recognize me as their master. Moreover, I can choose any of them. However, they were all rejected by me, Jian Wushuang said right away. You rejected them? Luo Xianxia opened her eyes wide. The surrounding people were also filled with disbelief. Although the Emperor Swords wanted to recognize Jian Wushuang as their master, they were all rejected by Jian Wushuang in the end. Why did he reject them? How could reject them? Just now, I communicated with those Emperor Swords and I planned to take all of them away. However, it's a pity that the 8 Emperor Swords are extremely arrogant. Indeed, as Emperor Swords which stand at the top, they are naturally extremely arrogant. As such, they are not satisfied with sharing the same master with any other swords at the same time. Therefore, not only would they not recognize me as their master at the same time, the moment one of them recognized me as its master, I could only use it as my only weapon for sword principles. They are really unreasonable, Jian Wushuang sneered. He had seen unreasonable people and unreasonable sects before. However, this was the first time that he had seen unreasonable swords. The 8 Emperor Swords were indeed extremely unreasonable and arrogant. As such, they would definitely not allow other swords to share a same master with them. However, for those Emperor Swords to be so unreasonable, this also shows how powerful they are. Even if you were to use it as your only weapon for sword principles in the future, wouldn't it not be a loss? Luo Xianxia could not help but ask. The surrounding people nodded their heads earnestly. The more unreasonable a sword was, the more frightening its power was. Since the Emperor's swords were so unreasonable, they would definitely be extremely powerful. With such a weapon on hand, why would they still need to use other swords? Hence, almost everyone present would agree to that condition without hesitation. However, Jian Wushuang rejected it. I already have my own weapon. Even if the Emperor's sword were to recognize me as its master, it would still be in second place in my heart. Wanting me to abandon my own weapon and use it as my only weapon is just some nonsense spouted by an idiot. Jian Wushuang's eyes were ice cold. When he had communicated with the 8 Emperor swords moments ago, the moment he knew their request, he had become furious at once. There was no doubt that the 8 Emperor swords were extremely powerful. At the very least, among the sword-type weapons that Jian Wushuang had seen, none of them was stronger than the 8 Emperor swords. Even when placed in the ancient past, the 8 Emperor swords could also be considered first-rate treasures. However, although the Emperor swords were powerful, his Blood Mountain sword was not weak. Perhaps the power of the Blood Mountain sword then was far from being comparable to that of the 8 Emperor swords. However, the Blood Mountain sword was an embryo sword and there was still a huge room for it to grow. When it grew up completely in the future, it would not be weaker than the 8 Emperor swords in the slightest. Moreover, it might even be stronger. Furthermore, the Blood Mountain sword came from his master, and it was something that his master had bestowed upon him personally. Hence, it contained his master's feelings. The most important thing was the position that the Blood Mountain sword had in Jian Wushuang's heart. It should be known that starting from the Green Fire world, Jian Wushuang had always fought with the Blood Mountain sword side by side, and to date, it was unknown how many years it had been. Just like the king of venomous worms, the Blood Mountain sword was a battle companion that he had trusted the most, and it was also his brother. Not to mention 1 Emperor sword, even if 8 Emperor swords, 80 Emperor swords, or even 800 Emperor swords were used, he would absolutely not abandon the Blood Mountain sword. As such, moments ago, he had rejected the 8 Emperor swords without hesitation and left. Of course, to other people it was absurd. It was to the extent that some people could not help but roar within their hearts. Although they had done their very best, they were still unable to obtain the big opportunity that was given to Jian Wushuang for free. Moreover, among the 8 Emperor swords, Jian Wushuang could pick any of them. In the end, Jian Wushuang had rejected all of them? What kind of resolve was that? Also, how big was the gap between them and Jian Wushuang? When they looked at the comparison, it was really infuriating. The recognition of masters by the Emperor swords has come to an end. Luo Xianzi, let's go out. Jian Wushuang looked at Luo Xianzi. Although Luo Xianzi had not completely calmed down yet, upon hearing Jian Wushuang's words, she nodded her head. Before she left, her eyes could not help but glance at the 8 Emperor swords again. She then sighed lightly. After that, she left the Emperor Sword Palace via the exit. As for the remaining experts, although they had mixed feelings, they were also extremely upset. However, it was a pity that the Emperor swords had chosen to recognize Jian Wushuang as their master instead of them. As such, they could not do anything and could only leave with dissatisfaction. The vast Emperor Sword Palace became peaceful again, and only the 8 Emperor swords which stood upright atop the sacrificial altar proudly like before remained. Perhaps after many years, someone would comprehend the Emperor sword principle in the sword grave and take some of them away. However, this person would definitely not be Jian Wushuang. Outside Emperor Sword Palace, Emperor Sword Sect Master and the others were waiting patiently. After Jian Wushuang and the others came out from Emperor Sword Palace, they went forward to greet them. Not long after Jian Wushuang and the others had exited Emperor Sword Palace, the entrance to Emperor Sword Palace closed. The next opening would be another 1 million years later. Gu Deng, has there been any incident in Emperor Sword Palace in the past 1,000 years? Emperor Sword Sect Master looked at a young man in a red robe. The young man in the red robe, real god Gu Deng, entered Emperor Sword Palace with Jian Wushuang and Luo Xianzi. During the 1,000 years of comprehension, nothing happened. But in the end, real god Gu Deng reported to Emperor Sword Sect Master in all honesty. What? King Swords recognized Jian Wushuang as their owner and he rejected them. The people from Emperor Sword Sect were shocked. Emperor Sword Sect Master was staring into the void as unprecedented jealousy burnt. One should know that King Sword's owner recognition was a great opportunity. In the history of Emperor Sword Sect, there was only the founder, his master, who had received a King Sword. With the King Sword, the founder of Emperor Sword Sect was extremely scary. If it were to be in the current times, he could absolutely be in the top 20 in Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. He might not even be too far off from the number 1 Emperor God, Underworld God. It was a pity that the founder of Emperor Sword Sect had passed away because of a danger he had come across when he was wandering in ancient Mysteryland many years ago. Then, he took control of Emperor Sword Sect. However, in terms of power, opportunities, or even disposition, he was far behind his master. He had taken control of Emperor Sword Sect for so many years. The power of Emperor Sword Sect didn't get stronger but weaker instead. As for King Swords in Emperor Sword Palace, his desire to get King Swords was far higher than anyone else's. He wanted to reach the level of his master through King Sword's owner recognition, but it was a pity that he had failed countless times in Emperor Sword Palace. But Jian Wushuang, King Swords took the initiative to recognize him as the owner, but he had rejected them? Emperor Sword Sect Master was, of course, jealous. Of course, no matter how jealous he was, Emperor Sword Sect Master didn't dare to show it. Sword Emperor Luo Shenzi, Emperor Sword Palace is closed and it will be opened again in another 1,000,000 years. I wonder if the two of you would like to stay in Emperor Sword Sect or... Emperor Sword Sect Master asked humbly. There are many things to be taken care of in Lineage of Star. I shall not trouble you further, Jian Wushuang replied. I shall leave too. Luo Shenzi looked cold. If so, I shall send the two of you off. Emperor Sword Sect Master was extremely courteous. Jian Wushuang and Luo Shenzi didn't stay, and left Emperor Sword Sect as Emperor Sword Sect Master saw them off. In the void outside Emperor Sword Sect, Jian Wushuang and Luo Shenzi stood side by side. Sword Emperor, Emperor Sword Sect Master looks to be polite to you, but I can tell that he harbored hatred in him, Luo Shenzi said. I took action to corner the entire Emperor Sword Sect and I even killed one of their Sir Gods. It'd be weird if Emperor Sword Sect Master didn't hate me. Jian Wushuang laughed. Not only Luo Shenzi could tell, but Jian Wushuang also saw through him. He was so readable. Plus, Jian Wushuang knew that Emperor Sword Sect Master was temporarily fearful of his power, and he didn't dare to display his hatred. Hence, his humble behavior. But in actual fact, he was dying to suck his blood dry and eat his flesh. Besides, Jian Wushuang was sure that when the Master of Star Palace's death was verified in no time, all forces and experts would launch an attack on Lineage of Star with all sorts of reasons. Emperor Sword Sect would definitely hit them when they were down. That was a definite. However, even though Jian Wushuang knew that for sure, he couldn't just destroy Emperor Sword Sect. Emperor Sword Sect in Eternal Chaotic World, their foundation and power in Sanctuary Alliance are too solid. It's okay if I just teach Emperor Sword Sect Master a lesson casually. Sanctuary Alliance wouldn't care. But if I were to destroy Emperor Sword Sect directly just because Emperor Sword Sect Master made it difficult for me, it would instigate dissatisfaction in the higher-ups of Sanctuary Alliance. Plus, Emperor Sword Sect already lowered their heads before me. Jian Wushuang thought to himself. Lineage of Star was already at the heart of the struggle. Among the higher-ups on Sanctuary Alliance, there were some who were hostile towards Lineage of Star or even to him. However, there were also some that anticipated and looking forward to him growing and becoming one of the major powers of Sanctuary Alliance. In other words, those who supported him. Between the two, there should be restrictions to one another. However, if Jian Wushuang were to destroy Emperor Sword Sect for trivial matters, although Sanctuary Alliance wouldn't do anything to him, it was inevitable that those higher-ups who were originally on his side would become unhappy. That was not something Jian Wushuang wanted. In Sanctuary Alliance, all forces are complicated. Like the saying, pull one hair and the whole body is affected. To Lineage of Star now, the most important factor is the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance. The standing of the great emperors, he couldn't let their standpoints waver. At least, not until after the danger period. As for Emperor Sword Sect, they are just clowns. Even if I don't destroy them now, when the war explodes, I will destroy them if they dare to join the war. Jian Wushuang didn't care much about Emperor Sword Sect. In Eternal Chaotic World, among the major forces who intend to fight Lineage of Star, there were many that were stronger than Emperor Sword Sect. Even if there was really a war, forces like Emperor Sword Sect weren't too many if there was one extra, weren't too few if there was one less. It didn't matter. Sword Emperor, as you know clearly, I shall not comment further. Goodbye, Luo Xianxi said and then turned to leave. Jian Wushuang watched as Luo Xianxi leave. Then, he waved and an ancient silver spaceship appeared in the void before him. Jian Wushuang entered the cabin and it started traveling at a terrifyingly fast speed to Lineage of Star. With the speed of the silver spaceship, he would arrive in Lineage of Star in no time. However, the silver spaceship only traveled for half a day before it ran into mishap. In the vast dark void, the ancient spaceship was traveling at a fast speed. However, just as the silver spaceship flew past a piece of void, the surroundings suddenly filled with blurry fog, and as the spaceship continued to plunge forward, the gray fog grew thicker. Jian Wushuang in the cabin instantly noticed the changes in the void outside the spaceship. His eyes dilated in shock. It seems that my journey back won't be smooth sailing. The void was filled with blurry fog. The huge, ancient silver spaceship vanished into thin air, while Jian Wushuang stood arrogantly alone. Jian Wushuang's gaze was like lightning. He stared forward with a tinge of coldness. In the void that Jian Wushuang was staring at, there were ripples spreading in the water. In the thick gray fog, there was a simple wooden boat. On the boat, there was an elderly paddling. The elderly was scrawny and tan-skinned. He was shabbily dressed in black with a bamboo hat. Judging by his looks, he was no different from an ordinary boatman. However, after the boatman in black appeared, Jian Wushuang's heart skipped a beat and his face grew solemn. The wooden boat emerged from the gray fog and continued to travel forward until it was 100 miles away from Jian Wushuang before it stopped. I wonder who you are. Why do you block my route? Jian Wushuang remained at the same spot as his voice spread. I am a nobody. My name, Sword Emperor, doesn't have to bother. I came here today for only one matter. The boatman in black smiled and said in a gentle voice, What's the matter? Jian Wushuang asked. Sword Emperor, what do you think about this fish? The boatman in black suddenly pointed in one direction of the void. Jian Wushuang suddenly looked and realized that the void filled with ripples while in the water. There was a huge carp that weighed about 3 jin that jumped out. It was so vivid as though it was real. The moment the carp jumped out, Jian Wushuang became heavily guarded. Vroom vroom. Jian Wushuang's consciousness was heavily affected. As the image turned, Jian Wushuang came to an ordinary courtyard. In the courtyard, there was a young maiden in snow-white blouse. She was practicing her sword principle while a young man sat by the side and gave pointers casually. He pointed out the young maiden's flaw in her sword principle. The courtyard wasn't huge, but it was a great place to practice swordsmanship. Although it had been years, Jian Wushuang could determine with a glance that the courtyard was where he used to practice swordsmanship when he was young. It was Sword Marquis Mansion. The young maiden in the snow-white blouse was Jian Menger, who had once been entangled with him. The young man who was sitting by the side and giving pointers was him in his younger times. The familiar sight was replayed perfectly. Sword Marquis Mansion, Jian Menger. It has been a while. Jian Wushuang's eyes suddenly turned sharp. Only dreamland. How could it affect me? Jian Wushuang thought, and he instantly plunged towards his true will with unprecedented determination. The image of younger times that he had missed immediately shattered with shockingly fast speed. Finally, the image shattered completely. Jian Wushuang continued to stand arrogantly into the void that was filled with gray fog, while the wooden boat in front of him remained at the same spot. However, the boatman in black who was originally on the wooden boat disappeared. Pust! Extremely soft. If it was any other ordinary almighty, he wouldn't be able to hear the sound, but there was a chilly gleam in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Go! A low roar and Blood Mountain sword was out of its scabbard. Jian Wushuang wielded his sword and brought about boundless sword intention. Simultaneously, it shook off the space-time. The stroke was spacetime sword principle that Jian Wushuang created through the combination of his studies about spacetime doctrine and sword principle. In spacetime sword principle, Jian Wushuang had already created the 7th move and he was merely performing until the 5th move. Dang! Along with a loud clash, the boatman in black's figure flew backward. There was murderous intention soaring from Jian Wushuang's body. With his willpower, the 4 Hong Jun golden swords ascended and turned into 4 rays of resplendent golden light. They chased after the boatman in black at lightning speed. Hee hee! The boatman in black smiled maliciously. As he retreated, his figure instantly blended into the surrounding gray fog and vanished. Jian Wushuang grew distressed while the 4 Hong Jun golden swords immediately stopped. He glanced around and swept out his soul power over the widest range. However, his soul power couldn't see through the surrounding gray fog. He knew that boatman in black should be around, but he couldn't determine the boatman in black's exact location. King of venomous worms, would your secret skill be able to locate him? Jian Wushuang asked. His current power had already reached the top of Emperor God level. Although King of Venomous Worms had already transformed into full-foot plenilune, his scariest power was actually recovery power. In ferocious fights, it was difficult for him to assist Jian Wushuang. However, he had many auxiliary skills. For example, King of Venomous Worms knew a secret skill whereby whenever someone got close to Jian Wushuang, King of Venomous Worms would instantly be alerted and he would remind Jian Wushuang. King of Venomous Worms shook his head when he heard Jian Wushuang. I can't. Maybe due to the surrounding gray fog. My secret skill wasn't working when I performed it. I see. Jian Wushuang's gaze fixed. He could tell that his opponent was well prepared. For instance, the surrounding thick gray fog should be a formation. Who are you exactly? Jian Wushuang's voice was cold as it spread in the surrounding void. Ever since he had started cultivating, he had offended countless enemies. There were quite a number of them who wanted him dead. However, his power was on display. There shouldn't be many who had the guts to scheme against him. However, the boatman in black that he had come across, he had never heard of him nor seen him before, but he posed a great threat. One should know that the magic skill earlier. In Jian Wushuang's view, it was definitely the most realistic and scariest magic skill. If it wasn't because he was an inverse cultivator and his mental state had been in training to the point that he had already reached the peak of the 3rd level of mental state, he wouldn't be able to shake off that dreamland forcefully. Plus, the boatman in black's assassination skill was really scary. He could say that the boatman in black was definitely one of the strongest assassins he had seen so far. Hee hee, Sword Emperor. I said that I only have one purpose for this trip. The purpose is naturally to kill you. His gentle voice spread from all directions and Jian Wushuang wasn't sure in which direction the voice came from. Nor did he know the location of the boatman in black. Just then, Virum, a strange bolt of power charged to Jian Wushuang without any signs before. Soul Attack. Jian Wushuang's face changed. Soul Attack was considered to be Jian Wushuang's weak point. Previously, he had spent a large number of resources to improve his soul. Then, he already formed a substantive soul and substantive soul was extremely strong, far beyond any ordinary Sir Gods. Such a powerful soul was also sturdier. Besides, he had already found a soul ring in the ancient battlefield back in Greenfire World. Although the soul ring was damaged badly, it had great defense power towards soul attack. It was Jian Wushuang's soul's reliance. The power of the boatman in black that he was dealing with was unfathomable. The soul attack that he had performed, Jian Wushuang wasn't sure if he could withstand it. Hong! Terrifying soul power was like a sharp sword that tore everything and charged towards Jian Wushuang's substantive soul. At first, it was hindered by the soul ring and its power was diminished by half. The rest of the power was also blocked off by soul walls that Jian Wushuang had put up temporarily. In the middle of the blurry void, Jian Wushuang clenched his teeth as he stood there. His face looked gloomy. Just as the soul power hit his substantive soul, his body quivered. There was a sharp pain that caused the veins on his forehead to pop up as though his head was going to explode. Fortunately, although there was a sharp pain, his substantive soul withstood the soul attack and was only slightly injured. Luckily, I purposefully spent a large number of resources to improve my soul strength. Luckily, I got a soul ring from the ancient battlefield. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang had yet to recover from the attack. He knew that if there were to be lack of the factors, he would have been killed by the soul attack directly. Suddenly, there was a shrill scream across the void. Jian Wushuang's eyes quickly dilated. He had barely withstood the soul attack earlier, but the boatman in black's attack descended again. The speed was too fast and too sudden. The most crucial part was that Jian Wushuang had no idea where the location of the boatman in black was before he attacked. When he realized, the boatman in black was already behind him. The attack was launched at a close distance. Moon-picking skill, a boundless divine power and bloodline power suddenly erupted. The strongest secret skill of ancient god, moon-picking skill, was performed instantly. Then, the moon-picking skill that Jian Wushuang performed was aiming at the void that he was in. Rumble. The surrounding sky and spacetime instantly pressed down. Not only the boatman in black, but also Jian Wushuang himself, felt the pressing of the spacetime and was greatly restricted. Comparatively, Jian Wushuang was far less restricted. Jian Wushuang slanted his body and the black light that was swung by the boatman in black flew past. I dodged it. Jian Wushuang was surprised. Moon-picking skill was originally used to pressure opponent using spacetime while he launched a full attack at his opponent. Then Jian Wushuang had used it to dodge the attack. Very smart indeed. The boatman in black was shocked. Just as Jian Wushuang was driving 4 Hong Jun golden swords and prepared to counterattack, the boatman in black blended into the surrounding gray fog again and disappeared from within Jian Wushuang's sensory range. Damn it! Jian Wushuang looked distressed. Jian Wushuang, this guy merged with the surrounding gray fog and it is hard to trace him. As long as the gray fog is here, he can attack and retreat as he wishes. Only he could attack you, but you couldn't attack him. In other words, he is invincible. King of Venomous Worms said in Jian Wushuang's head. If so, I shall disperse the gray fog. Jian Wushuang fixed his gaze upon the fog. Ancient god, unique skill, universal laws. Virum, 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 Virum. The void shook and there were huge ancient god shadows that appeared behind Jian Wushuang. With one glance, there seemed to be more than hundreds or thousands of shadows. These shadows were substantiated by boundless divine power. Reincarnation palm. Jian Wushuang roared and a palm containing boundless reincarnation power slapped. The crowded ancient god shadows behind him also gathered boundless divine power and then they swung their palms too. They were all reincarnation palms. One should know that reincarnation palm derived from Jian Wushuang's comprehension of the shocking palm that one-star man left in his head the other day. In terms of power, it was also considered a fierce secret skill and the divine power that required was not little. An ordinary Sir God could at most perform over a dozen palms after a vigorous fight. However, Jian Wushuang himself and also ancient god shadows that he had formed performed the palm. The expense of divine power. An ordinary Sir God wouldn't be able to withstand it. But Jian Wushuang could perform it straightforwardly. Hong! 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 Listening to vigorous explosions, the palms that seemed to contain the entire reincarnation attacked the surrounding void. The surrounding void shattered and broke. Only with one round of attacks, the tens of millions of miles void that Jian Wushuang was in had shattered into pieces. Even space was non-existent. The gray fog in the space was naturally swallowed up mercilessly. Without the hindrance of the gray fog, Jian Wushuang finally locked gazes with the boatman in black. The boatman in black was standing in the void about 10,000 miles away. You are truly an inverse cultivator. Your divine power is boundless. With such attacks, the required divine power should be huge, but you could perform it with ease without any pressure. The boatman in black complimented. Even though the surrounding gray fog had dispersed, he wasn't in a hurry. Now you and I can fight a fair fight. Jian Wushuang's eyes were cold. Just as he spoke, swoosh, 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 the 4 golden lights instantly burst out. The speed was enough to strike fear into an ordinary emperor god. Jian Wushuang gave full play to his comprehension of spacetime doctrine. Plus, from the increase in his understanding of sword principle, the power of the 4 Hongjun golden swords was much stronger than before. Even without the assistance of the gray fog, I can still kill you. The boatman in black smiled maliciously. When the 4 golden lights appeared in front of him, the black saber that gave out dim light in his hand suddenly shuttled through the 4 golden lights instantly, like a poisonous snake. The 4 golden lights instantly moved to the side from the impact while the boatman in black didn't stop but appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Wow! Boundless dim light flowed out and a black saber descended. Jian Wushuang could only feel that he had instantly fallen into boundless darkness. Humph! Jian Wushuang harumphed coldly while his blood mountain sword let out a shrill whistle. The sword light instantly burst out along with boundless reincarnation power. The stroke was Reincarnation sword principle, the 6th move. It was also the most powerful stroke among Reincarnation sword principle that Jian Wushuang had created. Under the trigger of Jian Wushuang's fierce divine power and bloodline power, the power of the stroke was extremely terrifying. Clang! The sound of metal clanged and Jian Wushuang took a few steps back from the impact. Just as he retreated, Hong! A boundless bloodline aura spread and Jian Wushuang's figure suddenly increased in size and instantly turned into black jade colors. Simultaneously, there were heads and arms extending from his body. Ancient tribe body revealed itself with 7 heads and 14 arms. Jian Wushuang's fighting power suddenly reached its peak. Die! The 4 Hongjun golden swords flew out with ferocious sword intention, while Jian Wushuang's 14 arms wielded a sword each and attacked. The boatman in black wasn't afraid and swung out his black saber continuously. Dang! 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 There were vigorous clashes of blades in the void. Jian Wushuang had already given full play to his swordsmanship and his close combat skill in collaboration with an intense attack of Hongjun golden sword. Even so, the boatman in black was responding rather at ease. Sword Emperor, compared to when you fought with Palace Master Wu Luo from Abysmal Palace 1,000 years ago, your swordsmanship has improved tremendously. The boatman in black smiled and his figure suddenly became creepy. Just like the reflection in the mirror, he appeared in 3 different places in the void. When Jian Wushuang swept out his consciousness and located the boatman in black, the latter appeared next to him. Then the black saber was swept at him again. The darkness was as usual and the power was soaring. Bang! Jian Wushuang was pushed out by the impact. After Jian Wushuang steadied himself, his cold eyes locked onto the boatman in black as his face grew solemn. This person is so strong. Strong, he was really strong. One should know that, 1,000 years ago, Jian Wushuang had collaborated his close combat skills with his Hongjun golden swords and he had matched evenly with Luo Xianxia, who was in the 21st place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. After 1,000 years of cultivation in Emperor Sword Palace, Jian Wushuang had improved tremendously in sword principle and his overall power. Then, he was stronger than he had been 1,000 years ago. But in the end, when he gave full play to his sword principle, close combat skill and Hongjun golden swords, he still had the lower hand. The boatman in black, who exactly is he? Jian Wushuang muttered. He was sure that the boatman in black wasn't a great emperor but an emperor god expert. He was definitely not on the Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. However, his power among all emperor gods on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list should definitely be in the top 3, or even second to Underworld God. If the gray fog wasn't dispersed by Jian Wushuang forcefully, the boatman in black would be able to fight with Underworld God with the existence of gray fog. He was definitely a terrifying existence. He doesn't exist on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. Could he be from Holocaust sect of Acheron Palace? Jian Wushuang couldn't help but ask. Holocaust sect and Acheron Palace were hidden. Their experts almost never revealed themselves. Hence, Sanctuary Alliance didn't know much about the experts that the 2 dark forces had. If it was said that the boatman in black was from Holocaust sect of Acheron Palace, it was possible. Then the boatman in black looked at Jian Wushuang. The infamous Sword Emperor is really not weak. Even I will have to pay a price if I want to kill you. Just as he spoke, the boatman in black suddenly flipped his hand and took out a creepy black pearl. Jian Wushuang's heart skipped a beat at the sight of the black pearl. The boatman in black had already squashed the black pearl. The pearl broke and dark energy that struck fear even into Jian Wushuang soared up. The dark energy concentrated on the black saber under the control of the boatman in black. Die! The boatman in black took action. He swung out his black saber. Suddenly, the universe was engulfed in boundless darkness. In the dark, a resplendent light shined. The light was too bright. It was definitely one of the brightest lights Jian Wushuang had seen, and its speed was unbelievably fast. The moment it was swung out, it appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. He who wanted to withstand it by performing 8 divine mountain wouldn't have a chance either. Then, Jian Wushuang's face grew red while 4 out of his 14 arms flowed with billowing divine power and wielded the swords. The 4 sword shadows collided with the light. Clang! A terrifying power traveled and almost instantly, the 4 swords in the 4 arms flew off. But the power of the light didn't decrease and hit Jian Wushuang's body. Poof! Jian Wushuang spat a mouthful of blood, while Jian Wushuang's body retreated tens of thousands of miles away before he regained stability. After Jian Wushuang steadied himself, he suddenly lifted his head. A great emperor's hit? Without a doubt, the power of the light earlier had already surpassed an emperor god's power. It definitely had reached the level of a great emperor. It was equal to a great emperor's hit. Hence, it could throw Jian Wushuang's sword away and continue to injure Jian Wushuang. The boatman in black squinted his eyes. He didn't die? A great emperor's hit was enough to kill an emperor god easily. That was definite. On heaven and earth supreme ranking list, among all emperor gods, only 2 could withstand a great emperor's hit but not die. But then, Jian Wushuang had done it. It seems like your armor was no ordinary chaotic divine treasure. The boatman in black glanced at the crimson armor on Jian Wushuang. He knew that the reason why Jian Wushuang could withstand the hit was because of the armor. Jian Wushuang himself admitted that his divine power could be compared to an emperor god's favorably, and in addition to his ancient tribe bloodline, his divine power was impressive. However, to block the earlier hit like a great emperor's hit with his defense body, it was impossible. But he had 5-gem armor. As the only treasure that ancient tribe expert from ancient times, Wu Hun, had left for him. Although it was broken, his defense power was still terrifying. Like the great emperor hit earlier, its power was diminished by 90% after 5-gem armor. With only the remaining power left, it naturally couldn't kill him. As a great emperor hit couldn't kill you, it seems that I can't do anything about you. Sword Emperor, you're lucky this time. We shall meet again. Just as he said that, the boatman in black floated to the far-off void. Jian Wushuang stood in the void as he watched the boatman in black leave. He didn't intend to chase after him. He was clear that, in terms of power, the boatman in black was still above him and he had many tricks and techniques on hand. It was already great enough that he got to survive the attack. It was an extravagant hope to take down the boatman in black. This person, who sent him? Jian Wushuang thought to himself. Speaking of assassination, Jian Wushuang thought of Acheron Palace and Holocaust sect first. However, his gut feeling told him that the boatman in black should have nothing to do with Acheron Palace and Holocaust sect. After all, he had experienced the power of the 2 dark forces before. They either don't attack all or there would be definite death if they did. Just like the besiegement of Acheron Palace last time, if it wasn't because he was lucky and he had met 1-star man, it would have been impossible for him to survive. Then, although the boatman in black was powerful and he could pull a great emperor-like hit, he couldn't corner Jian Wushuang to a desperate situation with that. Acheron Palace and Holocaust definitely wouldn't only reach such level when they attacked. As he wasn't from the 2 dark forces, those who could send someone so powerful yet with no fame definitely would only be the existence of the high above. The great emperor finally couldn't hold back and started taking action at me? Jian Wushuang looked gloomy. Among the great emperors in Sanctuary Alliance, there were quite a few that didn't wish to see him grow. Merely because there were some great emperors that were looking forward to his growth, they were restricting one another. Although there are quite a few great emperors that don't wish to see me grow, currently, only Abysmal Saint Master displayed his hostility towards me. Unless the one who wanted to kill me this time is really Abysmal Saint Master. Jian Wushuang muttered. Of course he wasn't sure. Although, I don't know which great emperor did it this time. But luckily, as he still has scruples, he couldn't kill me personally but only could send the boatman in black earlier. There's a what-if in every situation. I'd better be more careful. Otherwise, it might be a great emperor who attacks personally next time. Power! It's power! Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and he felt unwilling to yield. He knew that he was eyed by some great emperor. He had no other ways. He could only be defensive and take the hits. He could only think of ways to resolve the danger that he was in. It was the difference in power. Not until the day that he obtained the 7th step of inverse cultivation skill and truly became an almighty would he be able to stand side by side with the great emperors. Jian Wushuang didn't stay any longer in the void but quickly returned to Lineage of Star. In the huge, luxurious estate that looked like a paradise. In the middle of the estate, there was a river and the river water was as clear as crystal. There was a boat floating and there was a lazy man in a purple robe fishing with a bamboo pole in the boat. The entire estate was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Suddenly, the boatman in black appeared at the corner of the boat. He greeted politely, "Master, I'm back. How did it go?" The lazy man asked casually. "I already used Blood Dynasty Pearl, but I still failed in the end. The defensive armor of Jian Wushuang's body is unusual," the boatman in black said. "Oh." The lazy man raised his eyebrows, but he didn't mind much. "Forget it. Let Jian Wushuang live for a while longer." "Oh, you didn't reveal anything to him, right?" "Master, I was in disguise during the attack. Besides Master, there is no one else who knows it was me," the boatman in black said as his appearance and aura changed at a fast speed. The original tan-skinned, scrawny elderly in black suddenly became an extremely evil-looking lady in a purple robe. The lady looked enchantingly beautiful. Her skill was fair and her body figure was curvy. She was a classically beautiful girl. Even if Jian Wushuang saw this lady, he definitely wouldn't associate her with the boatman in black. Not long after the assassination of the boatman in black, Jian Wushuang returned to Lineage of Star. He cultivated in Emperor Sword Palace for 1,000 years. In the past 1,000 years, nothing had happened in Eternal Chaotic World. Lineage of Star was rather peaceful. Ever since the fight between Lineage of Star and Abysmal Palace, Lineage of Star had displayed their fierce power and it served as a deterrent to all forces. Plus, the news about the Master of Star Palace's death had yet to be confirmed. Hence, although the forces and experts had intentions in their heads, no one dared to take action against Lineage of Star at that moment. However, the date of the closing of Ancient Mysteryland was getting closer. There were only 200 years left. 200 years were extremely short. The time wasn't much left for Lineage of Star. In the lofty hall, Master Yuan, how did the expert recruitment go? Jian Wushuang asked. As of now, there is a total of 17 Almighties that have accepted our invitation. Among the Almighties, there are 2 Emperor Gods while the rest of the 15 are Sir Gods. Among the 15 Sir Gods, there is one who is on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. In addition to Emperor God Join who accepted our invitation earlier, we now have 5 people with the fighting power of an Emperor God in Lineage of Star. Plus, Palace Master yourself and Jian Yi. There are 2 peak Emperor Gods. Hall Master Yuan sounded excited. Fighting power of 5 Emperor Gods. Among all sects in Sanctuary Alliance, any forces had yet to achieve that. However, Lineage of Star had achieved it. Of course, that was because the condition that Lineage of Star had offered was too tempting. Not only did they give them chaotic divine treasure, but the temptation of secret skill of Star Palace was also huge. These people in Lineage of Star, are they honest people? Jian Wushuang asked. Palace Master, don't worry. First of all, these people have good reputation. Secondly, they have yet to receive a secret skill of Star Palace. Even though they have gotten their chaotic divine treasure, they are still restricted. Unless it comes to the brink of life and death, they won't abandon Lineage of Star and leave, Hall Master Yuan said. That's great. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. Although the experts had accepted Lineage of Star's invitation, they had come merely for the benefits offered and they didn't have any relationship with Lineage of Star, let alone a feeling of belonging. It was impossible for them to go all out for Lineage of Star. Hence, Jian Wushuang merely wanted to hang on to them through benefits. Wait until the war exploded. Even if these people didn't risk their all for Lineage of Star, they could at least be useful then. They could definitely increase the overall fighting power of Lineage of Star. Oh yeah, on the way back from Emperor Sword Sect, I met a mysterious expert. Jian Wushuang briefly told him the story about the boatman in black. The boatman in black is extremely scary. He even took out a strange pearl and exploded a hit that wasn't second to a great emperor's hit. Hall Master Yuan, you know more about Sanctuary Alliance than I do. Do you know the origin of the boatman in black? The boatman in black? Hall Master Yuan creased his eyebrows slightly. In Eternal Chaotic World, there are some experts that are powerful but not famous. They have power that isn't second to Emperor God, but they aren't on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. However, there are not many experts like that and the boatman in black that Palace Master was talking about. According to what Palace Master said, the boatman in black's power should be in the top 10 among all Emperor Gods in Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. Such expert, there are none according to the people I know. None. Jian Wushuang shook his head and he was helpless. He could tell that the boatman in black was most likely sent over by a great emperor. Which great emperor to be exact? He had no idea either. Forget it. I shall not think about him for now. As for now, I should be dealing with the upcoming danger that Lineage of Star is facing. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. 200 years. Only 200 years left. 200 years later, the storm would come again. In the 200 years, Jian Wushuang never left but cultivated in seclusion on Sword Star. He was naturally cultivating the King Sword principle that he had obtained from Emperor Sword Palace. He had comprehended 3 moves from King Sword principle and every single move could split the heavens and break earth. What Jian Wushuang needed to do then was to master the first move within 200 years. As long as he masters the first move from King Sword principle, it meant that he had another extra killer move. Time flew past. During the 1,000 years when Jian Wushuang had comprehended in Emperor Sword Palace, Eternal Chaotic World had been extremely quiet. Plus, as Jian Wushuang had returned, the forces and experts in Sanctuary Alliance naturally wouldn't dare to incite trouble. In the blink of an eye, 200 years had passed. The ancient mystery land that only opened every 5 million years and only opened for 10,000 years each time. Then, the time limit of 10,000 years was ending. In the huge ancient mystery land, there were a total of 4 entrances and every entrance was huge. As the time limit of 10,000 years was up, the experts who were wandering in ancient mystery land walked out from the entrance one after another. At one of the entrance, swoosh, swoosh, there were flashes of light. Then, there were 2 figures that walked out from the huge wormhole. The 2 people were Sir God Yun Suo and Sir God Li Quan. They were 2 powerful Sir Gods. During these years, the 2 had teamed up to wander in ancient mystery land. After wandering, they had gained a bountiful harvest. After the 2 exited the wormhole, Sir God Yun Suo suddenly paused and looked around in shock. Where are there so many people? Sir God Yun Suo could see a large number of figures gathered around the entrance. The figures were made up of strong and weak people. Plus, within the range of his soul power senses, he could feel many auras hidden in the void nearby. In the past, when ancient mystery land closed, although there were some experts waiting outside, most of them were spies from intelligence organization. The amount was never this high, Sir God Yun Suo exclaimed in surprise. Li Quan, do you know what happened? Sir God Yun Suo looked at Sir God Li Quan by his side. I heard, Sir God Li Quan smiled. I heard that Vientiane Tower sent out a message not too long ago that the Master of Star Palace from Lineage of Star had passed away, and he passed away in ancient mystery land. However, the news is only Vientiane Tower's guess. It has yet to be verified. All these years, there were many forces and experts in Sanctuary Alliance that wanted to test Lineage of Star's actual situation. Even Abysmal Palace fought with Lineage of Star personally. Until now, no one was certain. Now, ancient mystery land is going to close. This is a chance to surely verify if the Master of Star Palace died. Of course, there are many who are here. I see. Sir God Yunsua was shocked. The scary Master of Star Palace passed away? No one knows if it was true or false. But wait till Ancient Mysteryland is closed entirely and see if the Master of Star Palace walks out of Ancient Mysteryland. Then we will be able to tell. Why not? Let's wait here too, Sir Godly Quan suggested. Sure. Sir God Yunsua nodded immediately. At the entrance, there were more and more experts gathered, and there were many spies sent by various forces. Not only that particular entrance, but the other 3 entrances also had a large number of spies keeping watch, and they had been doing that for a very long time. Ever since the news of the Master of Star Palace's death, the spies had been keeping watch at the entrances. No matter which exit did Master of Star Palace took, all forces in Sanctuary Alliance would receive the news at the first instant. Until then, they didn't see the Master of Star Palace. The time continued to fly past. It was getting closer to the time where Ancient Mysteryland would be closed entirely. There's only 1 hour left. In another hour, Ancient Mysteryland will close. The experts who wandered in Ancient Mysteryland all these years, those who are alive has come out from Ancient Mysteryland long ago. However, the Master of Star Palace has yet to show himself. It seems that Vientiane Tower's assumption is true. Humph, I could tell long ago that the Master of Star Palace had passed away, but I couldn't be certain about it. But now I am definite. The experts from all forces locked their gazes upon the entrances. The closing time was getting closer, and the Master of Star Palace was nowhere to be seen. The experts were certain. 1 hour was ending soon. 10 breaths, only 10 breaths left. The Master of Star Palace is not coming out. It is definite that the Master of Star Palace has died. The experts from all forces were sighing. Very soon, with the experts' countdown, the 10 breaths time ended too. The time limit of 10,000 years was up. Theoretically, as the time was up, the 4 entrances of Ancient Mysteryland should close. However, there were no changes to the 4 entrances. The 4 huge wormholes didn't move an inch, and there was no sign of them closing. What happened? The time is up. Why are the 4 entrances not closing? Did we remember wrongly? Is it not time for Ancient Mysteryland to close yet? Remembered the time wrongly? Impossible. It is possible if only the 2 of us remembered wrongly, but it is impossible for all of us to remember wrongly. The 10,000 years time limit is up. There is no doubt about this. But the entrance of Ancient Mysteryland didn't close. Let's wait. Maybe it will be closed again. The experts at the 4 entrances were watching closely. 1 hour, 2 hours. 1 day, 2 days. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. The 4 entrances of Ancient Mysteryland were still there. There were no changes at all. There were even some experts who had tried to enter Ancient Mysteryland and walked out from Ancient Mysteryland again. It was smooth. Then, everyone was dumbfounded. At the same time, the news spread around Sanctuary Alliance and the entire eternal chaotic world. The time limit of 10,000 years had been reached, but Ancient Mysteryland hadn't closed? When everyone found out about the news, they were astonished. One should know that Ancient Mystery World was from ancient times. Since the Second Era until then, Ancient Mysteryland had been opened countless times over the years. It had already become a pattern that it would open every 5 million years and opens for 10,000 years each time. It had been so for countless times, and there was never once any mistake. But then, it was obviously an unexpected incident. On Thunderbolt Island, on the peak of the Sanctuary Mountain, in a huge courtyard, there was an elderly in gray who was fishing quietly with a bamboo pole and single prank footbridge. Suddenly, a middle-aged man with silver-white hair that barged into the courtyard. Ancestor Tian-chan, something happened. The man with silver-white hair walked next to the elderly in gray. What happened? The elderly in gray, also the 4th place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, put down the bamboo pole and looked. I just received news. After Ancient Mysteryland opened for 10,000 years, it didn't close. The man with silver-white hair said. What? Ancestor Tian-chen's face changed. No matter if it were Ancestor Tian-chen or East Royal Emperor, they were both the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance. Also, they were the peak experts of eternal chaotic world. They knew the deepest and greatest secrets of eternal chaotic world. Similarly, they also knew what ancient Mysteryland contained. Ancient Mysteryland had been opening and closing in order and they didn't care. But then, the other few already knew? Ancestor Tianqian asked. I already sent a message to them. However, you have to inform him, East Royal Emperor said. The he that he was talking about was naturally the widely acknowledged strongest one, Emperor Bai. Emperor Bai was supreme. Even among great emperors in Sanctuary Alliance, there were very few who could find Emperor Bai. Just like East Royal Emperor. Although he was a great emperor, his power was considered ordinary among great emperors. He wasn't close to Emperor Bai, so he didn't have any way to inform Emperor Bai. Let me do it, Ancestor Tianqian said. He then immediately took out a token. After a while, Ancestor Tianqian spoke again. I already messaged him. However, he temporarily didn't reply. We can only wait. Then let's wait, East Royal Emperor said helplessly. Not only Ancestor Tianqian and East Royal Emperor. The great emperors in Sanctuary Alliance had found out about what had happened at Ancient Mysteryland one after another. These great emperors were hardly concerned about anything as they were all high and mighty. But then they were really shocked. Ancient Mysteryland was associated with too many things after all. To forces and experts of Sanctuary Land, it'd be great if Ancient Mysteryland never closed. One should know that there were boundless opportunities in Ancient Mysteryland. Countless experts were dying to wander inside, but unfortunately, it only opened once every 5 million years and only opened for 10,000 years each time. But then, Ancient Mysteryland had opened for 10,000 years but didn't close. Didn't it mean that they could continue to wander inside for the rest of the time? Of course, although the incident that happened in Ancient Mysteryland had stirred a great commotion. There was another thing that caught quite a lot of attention too. The news about the Master of Star Palace's death was finally verified. Although Ancient Mysteryland never closed, the Master of Star Palace had never exited Ancient Mysteryland in the 10,000 years time limit. That was a fact. They lost their biggest fear at the bottom of their hearts. Even though there was Jian Wushuang attending garrison duty personally at Lineage of Star, the forces and experts didn't look at Jian Wushuang as a bigger threat than the Master of Star Palace. In an instant, all forces and experts in Sanctuary Alliance began to stir. Lineage of Star. What should be here is finally here. Jian Wushuang's face was cold. Hall Master Yuan, Hall Master Gu Xian and Hall Master Nyeyun were solemn. Palace Master had passed away 3,000 years ago and Lineage of Star has made the biggest preparation in the past 3,000 years. We also destroyed many enemies. It is considered good. As for what comes next, it will depend on Lineage of Star if we can pass through the danger, Hall Master Yuan said. In actual fact, Hall Master Yuan and the others already felt grateful. They were glad that each force had scruples because of the Master of Star Palace and it had given them another 3,000 years. The 3,000 years were too important to them. Hall Master Yuan, invite all the guest elders of Lineage of Star here. I think it's time to show our cards now, Jian Wushuang said. Yes. Hall Master Yuan nodded and immediately sent out messages. In a lofty palace, there was a spacious void. In the void, there were a total of over 20 thrones towering. These people were the almighties that Lineage of Star had recruited over the years via the provision of huge benefits. Including Emperor God Zhou-yin, there were a total of 18. Then, the 18 almighties were talking among themselves. They didn't look too good as they spoke to one another. I never expected that the Master of Star Palace had really passed away. Although we had already guessed so, it is hard to accept the fact. The moment the Master of Star Palace's death is verified, Lineage of Star will definitely be in great trouble. Everyone has to be mentally prepared. The news about the Master of Star Palace's death was widespread and the Almighties at the spot naturally knew about it as well. Just then, there were 4 figures that slowly substantiated in the void. Jian Wushuang was the leader of the 4. Jian Wushuang sat down on the highest throne directly, while Hall Master Yuan and the other 2 Hall Masters stood by his side. Just as they saw the arrival of Jian Wushuang and the others, Everyone who was in discussion in the void immediately became quiet. Jian Wushuang sat at the highest place as he glanced at all Almighties in front of him with a sharp gaze. The Almighties, including the three Emperor Gods, couldn't help but feel a tinge of fear when their eyes met Jian Wushuang's. Similarly, they had fighting powers of an Emperor God. However, Jian Wushuang had reached the peak of Emperor God, and those who could match evenly were just a handful. The few Emperor Gods at the scene were too far apart with Jian Wushuang. Everyone, I think you have received the news. Jian Wushuang's voice was cold. That's right. The Master of Star Palace has passed away, and he passed away 3,000 years ago. After he passed away, I became the newly appointed Palace Master in Lineage of Star. The Almighties were silent and no one spoke. Actually, everyone should be mentally prepared for this outcome, right? Jian Wushuang looked around. The Almighties were surprised, but no one denied it. The news about the Master of Star Palace's death was a widespread rumor for very long. It was just that it wasn't verified. They naturally knew the news. Hence, before they accepted Lineage of Star's invitation, they were well prepared. Then, the news was verified to be true. Sword Emperor. There was suddenly a thick voice. There was a 3-meter-tall, mountain-like brawny man that stood up among the crowd. The brawny man was Emperor God Shenwu, who was extremely strong in defense. Sword Emperor, don't worry. As we accepted Lineage of Star's invitation previously, we definitely won't go back on our words. No matter what Lineage of Star has been through, we will definitely be by Lineage of Star's side. I won't say we would risk everything for Lineage of Star, but we would definitely go all out, Emperor God Shenwu said. Yes, we would definitely go all out as a meager contribution for Lineage of Star. The Almighties stood up one after another and expressed their standings. The Almighties that Hall Master Yuan invited had great reputations, and they were men of integrity. Jian Wushuang smiled at the sight. If so, thank you, everyone. Jian Wushuang smiled. Everyone, don't worry. Lineage of Star is different from before. Even when the Master of Star Palace passed away, Lineage of Star wasn't someone who could threaten as they wish. As long as everyone works together, we should be able to deal with any danger. All right, everyone, let's get prepared. Jian Wushuang waved and beckoned for the Almighties to be dismissed. Just then, hold on a second. There was suddenly a low voice. Jian Wushuang and everyone at the scene looked to the source of the voice subconsciously. There was a man in a black robe that revealed a malicious smile. That's Sir God Beihan. There was no problem with his reputation. However, his character is the worst of all, and he is relatively more selfish. Hall Master Yuan sent a message in silence. Selfish. Jian Wushuang was surprised, but he looked calm on the outside. I wonder how can I help you? Sir God Beihan? Sword Emperor, from what I know, many years ago, the Master of Star Palace once massacred wantonly in Eternal Chaotic World. Hence, he offended many enemies, including many major forces. Those enemies were mostly killed by Sword Emperor in recent years. But the major forces are still here, Sir God Beihan said. Previously, when the Master of Star Palace was here, he could serve as a deterrent force to all the major forces. But now, the Master of Star Palace died and many of the forces might team up to exterminate Lineage of Star. Although Lineage of Star is powerful and there's the Sword Emperor attending garrison duty personally, I'm afraid it would be very difficult to withstand so many forces simultaneously. It's very difficult. However, Lineage of Star isn't as simple as it looks. If there were to be a war, we could fight against the forces, Jian Wushuang said calmly. Plus, if we really fail to do so, everyone could leave when it comes to a hopeless situation. We, Lineage of Star, wouldn't stop nor question you. Sir God Beihan, you don't have to be worried. Even so, if Lineage of Star were to really be exterminated, secret skill of Star Palace would definitely be in the hands of the forces. By then, it would be impossible for us to get secret skill of Star Palace from the hands of the forces. In other words, we will fight a tough war alongside Lineage of Star, but we won't get any benefit at all. Sir God Beihan's voice sounded rather evil. The moment he said that, there were many people whose expressions changed. Among the Almighties, there were many who came for the secret skill of Star Palace. Lineage of Star had promised that they could receive the inheritance of secret skill of Star Palace if they were to serve Lineage of Star for 10,000 years. However, just as Sir God Behan had pointed out, if in the upcoming war, Lineage of Star were to be exterminated, who could they get secret skill of Star Palace from? They fought for Lineage of Star but wouldn't get anything in the end? That wasn't something they wanted. Sir God Behan, what are you trying to say? Jian Wushuang glanced at Sir God Behan. I only want to give Sword Emperor a suggestion, Sir God Behan said. What suggestion? Jian Wushuang remained composed. Very simple. Before the war, which is now, let us inherit the secret skill of Star Palace. Then, not only will we fight Lineage of Star with our all, most importantly, with secret skill of Star Palace, we also could give full play to our trump cards. When we perform our trump cards, we could also increase Lineage of Star's winning chances. Isn't it a perfect plan for both parties? Sir God Behan said. Hearing what Sir God Behan had said, the surrounding Almighty's faces changed. There were a few that stole glances at Sir God Behan. Actually, they had had the same idea as Sir God Behan, but they didn't dare to bring it up. Jian Wushuang looked indifferent, but his heart grew gloomy. You want to get the inheritance of secret skill of Star Palace now? Sir God Behan, you thought great. Jian Wushuang sneered. The war has yet to start, and all of you have yet to do anything for Lineage of Star, but you want to receive the rewards and benefits? That's a joke. Forget that it would be a life-and-death war. Even if it was a simple mission, have you ever seen that one could get all the rewards and benefits for completing a task before completing it? In this world, would there be such an amazing deal? Sir God Behan, are you sure you're not letting your imagination run wild? Jian Wushuang's voice was cold. In the end, the entire vast void was like it was frozen. Sir God Behan suddenly grew awkward. Sword Emperor, I was just suggesting a method satisfactory for both parties. You should also put yourself in my shoes. After all, we do not wish to put in so much effort and get nothing in return. Humph, everything in this world has risk. You want to receive the secret skill of Star Palace from Lineage of Star, but you do not want to take any risk? If I were to let you inherit the secret skill of Star Palace now, when the war exploded, regardless of the situation of Lineage of Star, it wouldn't be related to you. Would you fight the war for Lineage of Star wholeheartedly? Sir God Behan, don't treat the others like idiots. I believe that if anyone here was me, none of you would be willing to give the promised benefits to the other party before the war began. Am I right? Jian Wushuang looked around. The surrounding Almighties exchanged a look. Although most of them wanted to receive the inheritance of secret skill of Star Palace then, they knew that what Jian Wushuang said made sense. There was no free lunch in this world. You have to put in effort before you get rewarded. That's a definite. One had yet to put in effort but wanted to receive a reward. It was really ridiculous. Sword Emperor. There was a figure that stood up. It was Emperor Gajioyin, who had been invited by Jian Wushuang personally, and also the first who had opted to join Lineage of Star's campsite. Emperor Gajioyin smiled. Everyone, maybe you don't know, but I am a killer. I have been a killer for so many years. Although killers are on the dark side, I also know a simple principle. Work first, get paid later. Killing has a huge risk. If I were to be reckless, I would lose my life. However, there are still many killers that are constantly taking a mission for a targeted reward. Comparatively, I find Lineage of Star's invitation that we accepted not as risky as an ordinary killer mission. After all, when we are at the brink of death, we can leave directly and Lineage of Star won't stop us. As long as we are careful, our lives are ensured. As for what Sir God Behan said, to get an inheritance of secret skill of Star Palace, and only then fight for Lineage of Star, that's a joke. The moment he said that, the surrounding people nodded in agreement. Only Sir God Behan looked embarrassed. Humph! If I do not get the secret skill of Star Palace first, I won't fight for Lineage of Star, Sir God Behan said. If so, forgive Lineage of Star for not seeing you off. Go ahead. Jian Wushuang looked cold. Hall Master Yuan, Hall Master Gu Xian and Hall Master Nyeyun looked cold too. Lineage of Star wasn't like before anymore. Forget about the experts that they invited. With the Dao soldiers alone, it was a terrifying fighting power. With such fighting power, Sir God Beihan was nothing. He wanted to leave, and Jian Wushuang and his troop wouldn't stop him. Very good. I'd like to see how Lineage Star is going to survive this danger. Humph! Sir God Beihan humphed coldly and left. Jian Wushuang and no one at the scene stopped him. After Sir God Beihan left, everyone, although what Sir God Beihan said was like a wild fantasy, it also reminded me. It wasn't a small war after all. If there was any mistake, Lineage of Star would be doomed forever. You might return empty-handed. So, I have changed my mind now. Jian Wushuang's voice spread. The Almighties immediately looked at Jian Wushuang. Changed his mind? Was Jian Wushuang agreeing to let them get the inheritance of secret skill of Star Palace? Everyone, as you are coming for the secret skill of Star Palace, you definitely have a certain understanding of Lineage of Star. You should know that there are 3 volumes in Secret Skill of Star Palace, and they contain different level of power. Now, although I can't let you inherit the secret skill of Star Palace ahead of time, I can promise those who put in extra effort during the war for Lineage of Star, we will reward each of you according to merit. In accordance with credit, you may inherit the first volume of Secret Skill of Star Palace first. If you put in a great effort, you may inherit the second volume. Then, even if Lineage of Star were to be destroyed in the end, as long as all of you gave your all, you would stand a chance to receive the secret skill of Star Palace during the process, so you won't return empty-handed. What do you think? Jian Wushuang looked around. Hearing what Jian Wushuang had said, the Almighties beamed with joy. Reward according to merit and receive the inheritance of secret skill of Star Palace during the process of war. Compared to the promised 100,000 years of service to get the inheritance, it was way more secure. Sword Emperor, don't worry. No matter what happens next in Lineage of Star, we will go all out. Yes, all out. The Almighties on the spot showed their standing. They looked determined. If they were to be said to be insecure previously, no one thought so after. Everyone was convinced and willing to go to war for Lineage of Star. Let's go down and prepare. Jian Wushuang waved. The Almighties left one after another. In the void, there was only Jian Wushuang and the other 3 hall masters left. Palace Master, I never expected for you to give way. Hall Master Yuan looked at Jian Wushuang in shock. Actually, you don't have to give way, and these people would still fight for Lineage of Star. Even so, they have scruples more or less. They might even be insecure. When it comes to crucial times, these scruples and insecurities will affect the entire situation. Plus, Sir God Beihan said something right. If these experts were to get the secret skill of Star Palace, their fighting powers would become stronger. Hence, I will separate the secret skill of Star Palace into 3 volumes to receive the inheritance. If they were to inherit the first volume, they would definitely figure a way to get the second and third volumes. In actual fact, it is great enough to be able to cultivate the secret skill of Star Palace. To cultivate the second volume, it's too difficult. It is impossible to cultivate the third one. Only we know that, and these people don't know. Jian Wushuang smiled. That's true. Hall Master Yuan nodded faintly. Ever since the Master of Star Palace had received the secret skill of Star Palace, only Jian Wushuang and the Master of Star Palace had cultivated the second volume. The others had merely got the first volume cultivated. As for the third volume, there was no one who had cultivated it successfully. Oh yeah, Sir God Beihan. Hall Master Yuan suddenly looked at Jian Wushuang. Palace Master, Sir God Beihan has stayed in Lineage of Star for quite some time. He knew quite a bit about Lineage of Star, especially the experts that we invited to Lineage of Star in recent years. Now that he has left Lineage of Star, if he were to spread the news, it would inevitably put Lineage of Star at a disadvantage. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. The forces and experts in Sanctuary Alliance knew that Lineage of Star were inviting solo experts to join them in recent years by offering benefits, and they knew that many solo experts had agreed. However, the forces didn't know who those solo experts were and how many there were. That information would put Lineage of Star at an advantage in the upcoming war. It would naturally be best not to announce it to the public. Don't worry about it. Sir God Beihan doesn't stand a chance. When he opted to leave Lineage of Star, I told Jian Yi to follow him, Jian Wushuang said coldly. Jian Yi. Hall Master Yuan was stunned. Jian Yi, a hidden fighting power of peak Emperor God in Lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang obviously had considered that long ago, so he had sent Jian Yi to take care of it. In Lineage of Star, outside the boundless universe galaxy, Sir God Beihan in a black robe had just walked out from Universe Galaxy. In the void, Sir God Beihan stole a glance at Universe Galaxy behind him, and there was rage in his gaze. Humph, Jian Wushuang, you are not willing to pass me the inheritance of secret skill of Star Palace now, right? Very well. I shall head to the major forces that harbor deep-seated grudges against Lineage of Star now. I'll head to Soaring Heaven King Palace, Divine King Island, Highest Heaven Emperor Mansion. With my power and the information about Lineage of Star that I know, it will be easy to join any of those forces. Plus, the few major forces will definitely take action to exterminate Lineage of Star. Wait until Lineage of Star is exterminated. Then I will receive the inheritance of secret skill of Star Palace as well. Plus, joining these major forces is much steadier than joining Lineage of Star. Sir God Beihan scoffed. From his viewpoint, Lineage of Star lost the Master of Star Palace to be in a commanding position, and all forces would definitely swarm in. Lineage of Star wouldn't be able to withstand it, and they would only be left with one outcome: extermination. Previously, he had agreed with Lineage of Star because he wanted to seize a chance to get secret skill of Star Palace. As for fighting for Lineage of Star, he would contribute, but the moment there was a danger, he would definitely run without hesitation. However, he never expected that he would argue with Jian Wushuang in Lineage of Star before the war had even started. Jian Wushuang, just you wait. I'll make you regret it. Sir God Beihan's gaze was cold, and he didn't hesitate about Lineage of Star behind him. He immediately moved forward to the vast void. However, he had just left Universe Galaxy and plunged forward in the void for less than 15 minutes when there was an evil-looking figure that blocked his way. Sir God Beihan's face changed and his body immediately stopped. Who are you? Sir God Beihan looked solemn as he fixed his eyes upon the evil-looking figure. Although he didn't give out any aura, Sir God Beihan's gut feeling told him that the person was strong. Your death. Jian Yi didn't talk anymore, but he moved his figure ghostly and came behind Sir God Beihan. Too fast. It was so fast that Sir God Beihan didn't manage to react at all. So strong. Sir God Beihan looked on in disbelief. Jian Yi took action, and his speed itself revealed how scary Jian Yi was. Such terrifying speed. There was almost no one among the experts that he knew that could be compared favorably. His power was far beyond his imagination. Such a scary expert, why would he appear here and want to kill him? He had never offended any expert like him. Jian Wushuang, it's Jian Wushuang. Sir God Beihan stared, and he had already guessed who had sent the scary expert. How is it possible? How did Lineage of Star hide such a scary expert? Sir God Beihan looked on in disbelief. Jian Yi's hoary hand with boundless power grabbed his throat. Sir God Beihan roared madly from the bottom of his heart, but he couldn't struggle at all. The hoary hand grabbed his throat, and Jian Yi exerted strength in his grip. Then, Sir God Beihan's head cracked, and his vigor was instantly interrupted. He killed Sir God Beihan directly. Jian Yi took care of Sir God Beihan's dead body and took his Qian Kuan ring. Then, he turned to head back to Lineage of Star. Lineage of Star, in a lofty palace. Jian Wushuang didn't wait long until Jian Yi appeared in front of him. Master, Sir God Beihan died. Jian Yi looked cold, and there was passion in his eyes when he looked at Jian Wushuang. Well done. Jian Wushuang nodded his head, and he was satisfied. After Jian Yi had left Greenfire World, his power had already recovered to the level of middle-stage chaotic realm. In recent years, when Jian Wushuang had fought and massacred outside, Jian Yi had never joined. He had been using an enormous amount of resources to recover his power. Then, Jian Yi's power had recovered to the peak of middle-stage chaotic realm. He was only one step away from peak chaotic realm. One should know that Jian Yi was an ancient expert. At his strongest, he was at the peak of chaotic realm. The techniques and skills that he had on hand weren't comparable to emperor gods from the Second Era. His fighting power then was so strong that even Jian Wushuang found it unbelievable. Merely as a conservative assumption, Jian Wushuang reckoned Jian Yi should be able to match evenly with the number 1 Emperor God in Eternal Chaotic World, Underworld God. The Master of Star Palace's death is verified. There must be rising winds and scudding clouds in the outside world. At such a crucial moment, there's a person that I have to see, Jian Wushuang said. The other 3 hall masters exchanged a look and nodded. They could guess who Jian Wushuang wanted to see. In Purple Moon Sanctuary, a beautifully enchanting lake. The lake water was purple. At night, the moon reflected on the lake and formed a huge purple moon. Its name, Purple Moon Lake, derived from it. In the middle of Purple Moon Lake there was a small island. Although the island wasn't huge, everyone knew that the island possessed an absolute ruling power over Purple Moon Lake. As the purple moon hung low, the entire island looked even more captivating. At the border of the island, a red-robed elderly was waiting patiently. The red-robed elderly's aura was strong and he was a Sir God expert. However, the Sir God had been waiting on the island for 1,800 years and the master of the island had yet to see him. A child at the age of 12 walked out from the island. Don't judge the child by his looks. The aura that he gave out was unfathomable, not much weaker than the red-robed elderly. Sir God Heidan, I asked on your behalf earlier, the master is still not awake. Hence, Sir God Heidan, you have to wait for a little longer. The child replied with his young and immature voice. Don't worry, I'll just wait here. The red-robed elderly, Sir God Heidan smiled but didn't give himself airs. One should know that he had been waiting for 1,800 years. Sir God, an almighty, an extremely noble position in eternal chaotic world. He had waited for 1,800 years but the master of the island never once appeared. However, Sir God Heidan didn't dare to feel upset because he knew clearly the true identity of the master of the island. Forget about 1,800 years. Even if it was 18,000 years, he had to wait patiently. Just then, swoosh, a figure plunged over from afar and landed on the island. Then, it appeared next to Sir God Heidan. Please help me inform your master that Jian Wushuang from Lineage of Star would like to see him. Jian Wushuang looked at the child and said humbly, Jian Wushuang? Sword Emperor. The child revealed a surprised look. As for Sir God Heidan, his body quivered in shock too. Sword Emperor's name was well known in Eternal Chaotic World. His name had long resounded in the expert's ear. The child and Sir God Heidan naturally knew. Sword Emperor, please wait for a moment. I shall go in and report immediately. The child bowed slightly at Jian Wushuang, then he turned and walked into the island. Jian Wushuang wasn't in a hurry but waited there. After a while, the child walked out and stopped before Jian Wushuang. Sword Emperor, Master has awakened. He asked for you to come in, the child said. Thank you. Jian Wushuang thanked him and walked to the island immediately. Then, how about me? Sir God Heidan asked by the side. Sir God Heidan, Master didn't say that he is going to see you. So, I will have to keep you waiting for a little while longer. Who knows? Master might summon you in after he sees Sword Emperor, the child replied. I understand. Sir God Heidan smiled bitterly. He had come first and he waited for 1,800 years. However, the master of the island woke up and called Jian Wushuang first. Of course, he didn't dare to be upset about it. He knew that if Jian Wushuang hadn't come, the master of the island might still be asleep. On the island, the plants grew luxuriantly. Right in the middle of the island, there was a simple thatched cottage. The cottage looked ragged and as though it was going to collapse if there was rain or wind. Sword Emperor, the master is waiting for you in the cottage. A hunchbacked elder who stood in front of the cottage guided Jian Wushuang in. When Jian Wushuang saw the hunchbacked elder, his eyes dilated in shock. He could tell with a glance that the hunchbacked elder was an emperor god and he was an extremely strong peak emperor god. However, on the Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, there wasn't any introduction about the hunchbacked elder. Not all the top experts in Eternal Chaotic are listed on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, Jian Wushuang muttered. Very soon he stepped foot into the cottage. In the cottage, there was only a simple bed, a wooden desk and a wooden chair. On the wooden bed, there was an evil-looking, purple-haired young man. The evil-looking young man looked cold and he smiled faintly. His smile was so enchanting. Looking at the person before him, Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and bowed politely as he greeted. Jian Wushuang greets Great Emperor. Great Emperor. That's right. The master of the island was seated on the wooden bed. He was also the ruler of Purple Moon Sanctuary, Purple Moon Emperor. Get up. Purple Moon Emperor waved and Jian Wushuang immediately stood up. I heard long ago that there was an unprecedented top genius in Lineage of Star. I finally get to see with my own eyes. Purple Moon Emperor smiled. He looked friendly. Jian Wushuang, you came here today. It should be for Lineage of Star, right? Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. The Master of Star Palace has passed away and Lineage of Star has lost its mainstay. Lineage of Star will definitely become a public enemy. All forces, including many experts, will come by. With the current Lineage of Star, I reckon it might be difficult to withstand, Purple Moon Emperor said casually. That's why I came here to ask for help from Purple Moon Emperor, Jian Wushuang said. Help? Purple Moon Emperor smiled faintly. Jian Wushuang, you thought too highly of me. Sanctuary Alliance has its rules. The battle between the forces, as long as they do not take the initiative to provoke it, we great emperors can't get involved as we wish. Lineage of Star has been in Purple Moon Sanctuary for so many years and we do share some relationships. Even when the Master of Star Palace was alive, he gave me many benefits. Theoretically, I should be protecting Lineage of Star. But it's not that I don't want to, but that I can't. Jian Wushuang was surprised. He knew that the great emperors wouldn't get involved in the fights among various forces. At most, they would protect one of the forces due to their relationships. Just like back then on Colored Glaze Sanctuary, Jian Wushuang had cornered Soaring Heaven King Palace into a miserable situation. Soaring Heaven King Palace had no choice but to ask Colored Glaze Emperor to get involved. Although Colored Glaze Emperor didn't get involved in their fights, she came out to protect Soaring Heaven King Palace. Hence, Jian Wushuang couldn't take any action against Soaring Heaven King Palace in Colored Glaze Sanctuary. However, besides Colored Glaze Sanctuary, Colored Glaze Emperor didn't care about anywhere else. That was the protection given by Colored Glaze Emperor. Lineage of Star was under the command of Purple Moon Sanctuary. Lineage of Star had been in touch with Purple Moon Emperor and they have given Purple Moon Emperor many advantages. Lineage of Star even gave Purple Moon Emperor a white blaze fruit tree. Theoretically, Purple Moon Emperor really should provide protection to Lineage of Star. Once Purple Moon Emperor provided protection, the forces and experts who had bad intentions towards Lineage of Star naturally wouldn't dare to act hastily. But obviously, it's because of secret skill of Star Palace? Jian Wushuang asked. The secret skill of Star Palace is secondary. You are the main concern. Purple Moon Emperor glanced at Jian Wushuang. You have great potential. Among the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance, although there are many who are looking forward to your growth, there are also some who are not willing to see you grow. You should understand the theory behind this. Jian Wushuang's expression didn't change. He naturally understood that. The restrictions that the two camps set for one another formed a balance. At such a moment, if I were to stand out and take Lineage of Star under my wing, the balance would tremble. By then, Lineage of Star would be in greater danger, Purple Moon Emperor said. As such, Lineage of Star's danger, I can't get involved personally. However, due to past relationships, Elder Qian, squeak. The cottage door was opened and the hunchback elder that Jian Wushuang had seen earlier walked in. Master. The hunchbacked elder was polite. This is a servant of mine. I will let him follow you back to Lineage of Star. That's the only thing I can do, Purple Moon Emperor said. Thank you, Great Emperor. Jian Wushuang thanked him immediately. He knew that among great emperors of the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance, Purple Moon Emperor stood at his side. However, Purple Moon Emperor's power was only considered ordinary and there were many restrictions. Hence, he couldn't protect Lineage of Star openly. It was great enough that he could send the hunchbacked elder to help. Great Emperor, I have another matter that I would like your help with, Jian Wushuang said. Tell me. Purple Moon Emperor looked at Jian Wushuang. I'd like to ask you to send a message to Emperor Bai on my behalf, Jian Wushuang said. Emperor Bai? Purple Moon Emperor was surprised and he said, Is it for inverse cultivation skill? Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. Purple Moon Emperor thought for a while and agreed. Emperor Bai's communication token, I don't have it, but I can figure out a way to entrust someone else to send a message to Emperor Bai. However, Emperor Bai is untraceable. Even if we send him messages, it is normal that he might not reply for over 1,000 or even tens of thousands of years. Hence, I can't guarantee if he would reply. Okay. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and he anticipated. Emperor Bai, an expert that was widely acknowledged in Sanctuary Alliance. An inverse cultivator at almighty level. To Jian Wushuang, the 7th step of inverse cultivation skill in Emperor Bai was extremely important. If he could get to the 7th step of inverse cultivation skill and break through to become an almighty, all danger could be taken care of and there would be no need for all those troubles. 1 inch go ahead. Purple Moon Emperor waved his hands. Jian Wushuang immediately left the cottage with the hunchbacked elder and walked out of the island. In the void of the island, Jian Wushuang flew side by side with the hunchbacked elder. I wonder how do I address you? Jian Wushuang looked at the hunchbacked elder. I am Qian Mingzi. I am merely a servant under the master's command. Sword Emperor could call me by my name or you can call me Elder Qian, the hunchbacked elder replied. Elder Qian, as lineage of Star is in danger. If there were to be a war, I'd like to thank Elder Qian in advance, Jian Wushuang said. Sword Emperor, don't worry. As Master commanded, I will definitely give my all. However, my power is limited. I believed it'd only be a meager contribution, Qian Mingzi replied. As long as you did your best. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. But in actual fact, Jian Wushuang knew that Qian Mingzi was powerful. Jian Wushuang had a feeling that Qian Mingzi shouldn't be any weaker than himself. With such great fighting power, he was definitely helpful to Lineage of Star. To be able to meet Purple Moon Emperor and receive assistance from Qian Mingzi, and Purple Moon Emperor promised to get in touch with Emperor Bai on his behalf. Jian Wushuang was already extremely surprised with that. Then, he naturally returned to Lineage of Star with Qian Mingzi to prepare for war. Then, in Eternal Chaotic World, there were rising winds and scudding clouds. After the Master of Star Palace's death was verified to be true, none of the forces could hold back anymore, especially those who harbored deep-seated resentment against Lineage of Star. In the independent space that was engulfed in a huge formation, there were 5 thrones towering within. On the 5 thrones there were people seated. They represented the 5 top forces in Eternal Chaotic World. Everyone, as it has been discussed, Star Extermination Alliance has been formed today. Star Extermination Alliance, specially to destroy Lineage of Star. The deep voices reverberated in the independent space. After a few days of discussion, Star Extermination Alliance had been established. Star Extermination Alliance was formed by 5 forces. The 5 forces were Abysmal Palace, Soaring Heaven King Palace, Divine King Island, Real Martial Arts Divine Church, and Highest Heaven Emperor Mansion. They had reached a mutual goal. This is a chance that is hard to come by. No one should hide anymore, Emperor God Tian Shao from Soaring Heaven King Palace said. Don't worry. In this fight, Divine King Island will go all out. Divine King Island's number 1 Divine King said coldly. Same goes for Real Martial Arts Divine Church. The Master of Real Martial Arts Divine Church said. We of Highest Heaven Emperor Mansion will send 13 out of 15 of our Almighties. The Master of Highest Heaven Emperor Mansion said with a cold gaze. Then, the 4 of them looked to the last person. That person was Palace Master Wu Luo from Abysmal Palace. In this fight, Lineage of Star must be exterminated. Palace Master Wu Luo's voice was deep. Exterminate. Exterminate. Everyone, let's get started. This time, we definitely won't give Lineage of Star any chances, Emperor God Tian Shao said. Very soon, all parties in Star Extermination Alliance had departed. This time, the 5 top forces weren't as high profile as back when Abysmal Palace had attacked Lineage of Star. When the 5 top forces took action, the other forces in Eternal Chaotic World almost didn't receive any news. As they realized, the 5 forces had already arrived at Star Land. In Star Land, there were wormholes connected to the surrounding land and sanctuaries. The wormholes were gathered in 3 places: Cloud Island, Green Zone, and Ice Mansion. The 3 places were controlled by Lineage of Star. That day, swoosh, a spaceship parked in Ice Mansion. This is Ice Mansion? A few figures stepped out from the spaceship and appeared in the void above Ice Mansion. What Palace Master meant is for us to wait until we conquer all space tunnels that connect Star Land to the outside world. Then we wipe out the whole of Star Land. Lastly, we attack the lair of Lineage of Star. This Ice Mansion is our first target. Let's begin. Immediately, a total of 5 Almighties took action personally and started a massacre. In Ice Mansion, there were merely some real gods from Lineage of Star who was in commanding position. There wasn't even one Almighty and they had no power to withstand it. In a short while, the entire Ice Mansion, all experts from Lineage of Star were killed mercilessly and Ice Mansion was conquered by Star Extermination Alliance. Almost simultaneously, a similar sight appeared in Cloud Island and Green Zone. Star Extermination Alliance's Almighties took action personally, and the 3 transportation portals of Starland were conquered by Star Extermination Alliance within half a day's time. Then, the experts in Star Extermination Alliance gathered and started a mad massacre on Starland. Whichever property under Lineage of Star and possessed a lot of resources were destroyed and attacked by Star Extermination Alliance. A large number of cultivators in Lineage of Star were massacred by Star Extermination Alliance. There were countless real gods and disciples that had died at the hands of Star Extermination Alliance. In an instant, the entire Star Land had flipped upside down while Eternal Chaotic World was boiling because of that. Just as the Master of Star Palace's death was verified, there was finally someone who took action against Lineage of Star. They either don't take action or when they did, it was as though they were breaking a piece of deadwood. In Lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang looked cold. He sat on a throne as Hall Master Yuan and the others stood there with a constant flow of messages flooding in. Abysmal Palace, Soaring Heaven King Palace, Divine King Island, Real Martial Arts Divine Church, Highest Heaven Emperor Mansion. The 5 major forces teamed up and formed Star Extermination Alliance. There is a large number of experts that descended on Star Land. Ice Mansion, Green Zone, Cloud Island are under attack one after another. The tunnels that connect Star Land to the outside world are all in the hands of Star Extermination Alliance. Serum Sect, Fate Pavilion, Azura Mansion, the 3 sects followed the lead of Lineage of Star were in bloodbath caused by Star Extermination Alliance. The 3 sects were destroyed. Besides, the force that yielded to Lineage of Star 60,000 years ago turned and fought against us. East Call City, Purple Maple City, the 11 cities under the command of Lineage of Star are attacked by Star Extermination Alliance. Lineage of Star's properties in the 11 cities were all destroyed. The news came in continuously. Jian Wushuang and everyone else's face grew grave. They act very swiftly, Hall Master Yuan said in a deep voice. Not only are their speeds swift, they are also very decisive. Star Extermination Alliance not only wanted to destroy Lineage of Star, they also wanted to root us out. They are not leaving us any leeway, Hall Master Gu Xian said. Jian Wushuang's face was cold. He knew clearly that if Star Extermination Alliance were to only intend to destroy Lineage of Star, they only had to gather all experts to the lair of Lineage of Star and kill all the higher-ups of Lineage of Star. The higher-ups died and Lineage of Star would naturally collapse. But then, Star Extermination Alliance had first conquered the space wormholes in Starland. After that, they had started massacring Starland on a large scale, taking one step at a time. They wanted to destroy all sects that were close to Lineage of Star. They didn't want to leave any leeway for Lineage of Star. They truly wanted to root them out, leaving no leeway at all. Once Star Extermination Alliance finally achieved their goal, Lineage of Star would definitely vanish into thin air without leaving anything behind. This method was really extreme. In such a situation, it'd be difficult even if Lineage of Star wanted to bury seeds that could grow in the future. Send down my command. Tell all experts of Lineage of Star to give up the resources and property on hand and return to Universe Galaxy. Tell them that the territory that we took control and the resources that we lose could be taken back in the future. First, their priority is to keep themselves alive. Tell them not to hesitate, Jian Wushuang commanded. Yes. Hall Master Yuan immediately sent down the command. Palace Master, do we watch as the entire star land fall into the hands of Star Extermination Alliance? Do we not counterattack? Hall Master Nie Yun asked with a deep voice. There was an unwillingness in his eyes. Starland was named after Lineage of Star. Ever since the establishment of Lineage of Star, Starland had been under Lineage of Star's control over the years. Lineage of Star had been ruling for so long and they had an absolute ruling power. But then, Jian Wushuang's command was obviously telling them to give up Starland. After painstaking care over the years, no matter who it was, he would find himself loath to leave. Resources are forever in control of the hands of the strong. As long as one is powerful enough, the lost items can be taken back. It is just a matter of time, Jian Wushuang said. With Lineage of Star's current trump cards and techniques, we could totally be evenly matched with Star Extermination Alliance, Hall Master Nie Yuan said in refusal. Fight head-on? Maybe. But don't forget that we are not just dealing with Star Extermination Alliance. Jian Wushuang's eyebrows were tightly knitted. Although Star Extermination Alliance had gathered 5 major forces, Lineage of Star might really be able to be evenly matched if they were to give full play to their trump cards. Star Extermination Alliance wasn't made up of all enemies of Lineage of Star. They were merely the first that took action. After Star Extermination Alliance, there were many forces and experts who were waiting for Lineage of Star to be destroyed. In turn, they could take a share. In such a situation, Lineage of Star should give up what should be given up without hesitation. Just do what I say, Jian Wushuang said. Yes. Although Hall Master Nie Yun was upset, he also knew not to comment much. Just then, Master, I am back. A message was suddenly sent. You're back. Jian Wushuang beamed with joy. He Xiao, who had already broken through and became real god not long ago, came before Jian Wushuang. Master, I brought these back. He Xiao passed Jian Wushuang a Chen Kuan ring. Jian Wushuang took it and swept it with his consciousness. He then revealed a smile. In the Chen Kuan ring there were Dao soldiers, a total of 20 of them. The 20 Dao soldiers were what Jian Wushuang had told he Xiao to make a trip to Greenfire World at the last minute to bring back from Greenfire World. Back in the ancient battlefield, Jian Wushuang had received a total of 132 Dao soldiers. Then, during the 6,000 years when Jian Wushuang had wandered in the ancient battlefield, he had damaged some. However, there were still more than 120 Dao soldiers. But then, Jian Wushuang had only brought back 100 Dao soldiers and left over 20 Dao soldiers in Greenfire World. But then, Lineage of Star was in danger. Jian Wushuang naturally wanted to figure out ways to increase Lineage of Star's fighting power. Hence, he told he Xiao to bring the 20 Dao soldiers over. Then, there were only 2 Dao soldiers left in Greenfire World. In addition to these 20 Dao soldiers, there is a total of 120 bronze-armored Dao soldiers in Lineage of Star. When 2 to 3 bronze-armored Dao soldiers team up, they could be evenly matched with an ordinary Sir God. In other words, it would be equivalent to fighting power of over 40 Sir Gods. In addition to the guest elders of Lineage of Star and the 4 silver-armored Dao soldiers, Lineage of Star's fighting power of Sir God level wouldn't be weaker than Star Extermination Alliance. As for fighting power of Emperor God, Jian Wushuang was calculating his troops' fighting power. In terms of Emperor Gods, there was a total of 3 Emperor Gods who accepted Lineage of Star's invitation. They were Emperor God Zhouyin, Emperor God Xianwu, and Emperor God Gushui. Among the 3 Emperor Gods, Emperor God Zhouyin was extremely close to peak Emperor God, while Emperor God Xianwu and Emperor God Gushui were slightly weaker. They could only be compared to an ordinary Emperor God. Besides, in Lineage of Star there were 3 peak Emperor Gods. That were Jian Wushuang himself, Chen Mingzi, who Purple Moon Emperor had sent, and also Jian Yi. In terms of fighting power of the Emperor God level, it was extremely strong too. Plus, there was the trump card of Universe Galaxy. Lineage of Star's overall power was strong. In terms of fighting power, Lineage of Star has reached the extreme limit. Now it depends on our skills. Jian Wushuang was soaring with anger. On Starland, the bloodbath continued. Star Extermination Alliance behaved wantonly. Wherever they went was left barren. Whoever was related to Lineage of Star by a slight bit, unless they turned and fought Lineage of Star, they would be destroyed. The terrifying bloodbath and massacre terrified countless people. Such a bloodbath lasted for 3 months. In 3 months, Starland was flipped upside down. All Lineage of Star's foundation in Starland was destroyed. Nothing was left behind. Starland was occupied. In a lofty palace, the heads of the 5 forces gathered. Lineage of Star could not tolerate this. Number 1 Divine King from Divine King Island muttered, "So what if they can't tolerate it? Would they initiate a life-and-death battle with us like they did with Abysmal Palace back then?" Emperor God Tian Shao sneered. "Back then, Abysmal Palace was reckless. We never expected Lineage of Star to have so many Dao soldiers. Plus, Jian Wushuang's power is extraordinary. Hence, we suffered a heavy defeat. But this time, Star Extermination Alliance gathers 5 top forces. Lineage of Star definitely won't have the capital to match evenly. They are basically courting death if they charge out blindly." Palace Master Wu Luo from Abysmal Palace said coldly, "Even so, I never expected things to be so smooth. In just 3 months, we conquered Starland. Next, we only have one last target." Number 1 Divine King from Divine King Island's gaze was cold. They had already conquered Starland entirely. It was said that Lineage of Star's retreat route was taken. Next, they naturally were going to the lair of Lineage of Star to kill all experts and disciples of Lineage of Star. This is our last step and also an extremely important step. We definitely can't be reckless. I suggest that our 5 forces immediately reorganize and consolidate our fighting powers. Then we can charge to Lineage of Star altogether," the master of real martial arts Divine Church said. "Sure. I agree. If so, let's depart now." On that day, also the day after Star Extermination Alliance had wiped out Starland entirely, the experts from all 5 forces departed simultaneously. The forces and experts in Sanctuary Alliance were watching the war closely. After a few days, the experts from Star Extermination Alliance arrived outside Universe Galaxy. The vast Milky Way continued to float in silence in the void. In front of the Milky Way, there were 5 spaceships floating. In front of the spaceships, there were many figures towering. The figures gave out extremely strong aura. They were all Almighties. With naked eyes, one could see that there were almost 70 Almighties gathered in front of the spaceships. Almighties, any one of them was the existence of an overlord. 70 Almighties was such a terrifying number. Also, it was only when the top 5 forces in Eternal Chaotic World teamed up that there would be such a powerful team formation. Besides, among the 70 Almighties, there were 10 Ori that obviously had already reached an even higher level. Emperor Gods. 10 Emperor Gods. Averagely, every force sent out 2 Emperor Gods. That was really shocking. In the nearby Milky Way, there were many experts from different forces that had gathered and there weren't very few. To sum up, the formation was definitely not below Star Extermination Alliance but stronger. The experts shared the same idea about secret skill of Star Palace from Lineage of Star. When the war started and Lineage of Star was destroyed, they would get a share of it. However, the experts had never revealed themselves as of then. In Universe Galaxy, there were many experts from Lineage of Star that had gathered there and Jian Wushuang was naturally the leader. As for Jian Yi and Chen Mingzi, they never revealed themselves. The 2 fighting powers of Peak Emperor God, Jian Wushuang wouldn't use them unless it reached a crucial moment, especially Jian Yi. Jian Yi's fighting power could easily challenge Underworld God. If he were to use him at crucial times, it would definitely turn around the situation entirely. Chen Mingzi wasn't weak as well. Most importantly, the outside world didn't know about the 2 fighting power. Even in Lineage of Star, besides Jian Wushuang, only the other 3 Hall Masters knew. The guest elders that had accepted their invitation didn't know about the 2 of them as well. Besides, the same applied to the Dao soldiers. Jian Wushuang only took out 34 Dao soldiers. 30 bronze-armored Dao soldiers, for silver-armored Dao soldiers, and guest elders that were invited. Those were the power that Lineage of Star put on display. With such strength, there was a great distance if compared to Star Extermination Alliance. Seriously, Abysmal Palace, Soaring Heaven King Palace, Divine King Island, Real Martial Arts Divine Church, Highest Heaven Emperor Mansion. The 5 forces are going all out in this war. Almost 70 almties, and there are 10 Emperor Gods among them. Such a team formation. Too strong. The team formation is too strong. How are we going to withstand it? The guest elders in Lineage of Star began to worry. It was inevitable. Their opponent's team formation was too strong. There was a total of 10 Emperor Gods. Peak Emperor Gods, they had 4 of them. The 4 were Palace Master Wu Luo from Abysmal Palace, Number 1 Divine King from Divine King Island, the Master of Real Martial Arts Divine Church, and also Emperor God Tianxiao from Soaring Heaven King Palace. As for Highest Heaven Emperor Mansion, they didn't have any peak Emperor Gods, but they had 3 Emperor Gods, and 2 of the 3 had come. The 2 Emperor Gods were extremely close to peak Emperor God level 2. When they teamed up, their fighting powers were almost strong enough to fight with a peak Emperor God. Jian Wushuang stood at the far front before all experts in Lineage of Star. He glanced at the 4 peak Emperor Gods who were the most eye-catching among his opposition campsite. Among the 4, he had fought with Palace Master Wu Luo before. As for the other 3, Number 1 Divine King from Divine King Island? Jian Wushuang looked at a brawny, middle-aged man in crimson armor. The brawny, middle-aged man looked like a beast. Number 1 Divine King from Divine King Island had gained fame earlier than the Master of Star Palace. He was on the 33rd place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. His skills were scary. The Master of Real Martial Arts Divine Church was an evil-looking elder. The evil-looking elder was malicious, but there was a dignified aura around him. He seemed to be upright but also evil at the same time. The Master of Real Martial Arts Divine Church was on the 28th place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. As for the last person, he is the strongest expert from Soaring Heaven King Palace, Emperor God Tianling. Jian Wushuang's eyes dilated in shock when he looked at the person. He was a white-robed young man with snow-white hair. There were no emotions in his cold, sharp glare. He didn't even move an inch when his eyes met Jian Wushuang's. It was as though Jian Wushuang was merely air in his eyes. Emperor God Tianling had been on the 21st place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. But due to the rise of Jian Wushuang, he was on the 22nd place. In terms of ranking, he was higher than Palace Master Wu Luo, Number 1 Divine King and the Master of Real Martial Arts Divine Church. Hence, his power was naturally stronger. When Jian Wushuang had fought with Soaring Heaven King Palace, Emperor God Tianling had been wandering in the second lair without revealing himself. Until then, when Jian Wushuang finally saw Emperor God Tianling in person. Jian Wushuang was surprised when he saw him. He had a feeling that Emperor God Tianling's true power wasn't that simple. As for the ranking on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, it might not be accurate. After all, Emperor God Tianling had been wandering in the second lair and never fought with anyone. Who knew if he hadn't improved in recent years? In short, it was extremely stupid to gauge Emperor God Tianling's power according to the ranking list. Come, let's head out. Jian Wushuang commanded, and all experts in Lineage of Star, including the 30 bronze-armored Dao soldiers and 4 silver-armored Dao soldiers, moved all together. They walked out from Universe Galaxy and stopped before the experts of Star Extermination Alliance. Oh! The people from Lineage of Star dare to walk out? I thought they would be hiding in their lair and rely on their formation to drag things out longer. Lineage of Star follows the lead of Sword Emperor now. Sword Emperor is not one who is overcautious. Previously, when Abysmal Palace attacked Lineage of Star, he led the experts in Lineage of Star and initiated a fight. In the end, Abysmal Palace was heavily defeated. Humph, that's because Abysmal Palace was too careless and they belittled Lineage of Star. But now, 5 major forces have teamed up and our team formation is so strong. How could Lineage of Star match evenly? If they dare to fight head-on, let's crush them. The experts of Star Extermination Alliance were confident. The top 5 major forces teamed up, and there was no one force in eternal chaotic world that could match it evenly. It was impossible that Lineage of Star had the ability to. Jian Wushuang. A loud voice sounded across the void. Palace Master Wu Lui from Abysmal Palace took a huge stride forward as his cold eyes looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang. Lineage of Star is very capable. In merely a few thousand years, you managed to invite so many experts. Compared to Star Extermination Alliance, it's nothing. Jian Wushuang's face was cold. Star Extermination Alliance gathered 5 major forces. According to what I know, the 5 of you have some conflicts normally, and you even held grudges against one another. But today you teamed up to aim at Lineage of Star. Isn't that even more outstanding? Humph, we 5 forces did have conflicts. However, it's nothing compared to Lineage of Star. As long as we can exterminate Lineage of Star entirely, so what if we have to team up? Number 1 Divine King from Divine King Island said. The 5 major forces that formed Star Extermination Alliance had once suffered greatly from Lineage of Star. As their resentment would stop at nothing, with such great resentment, they advanced and consolidated every single step to root out Lineage of Star. Emperor God Join, Emperor God Shenwu, Emperor God Gu Shui, and every Sir Gods. Palace Master Wu Luo looked around. At such a crucial moment, you opt to side with Lineage of Star. That's very impressive. The guest elders who had accepted Lineage of Star's invitation, their eyes dilated in shock. Humph, you thought Lineage of Star had the capital to be fearless to all forces after inviting all these experts? That's a joke. Today onwards, Lineage of Star is going to be a history. These Sir Gods and Emperor Gods standing by Lineage of Star's side. None of you should think of running away. Everyone has to die. Palace God Wu Luo's voice was cold. Yes, as they opted to side with Lineage of Star, they are Star Extermination Alliance's enemies. All must die. Number 1 Divine King from Divine King Island said coldly. Those who dance with Lineage of Star should be dead. The master of real martial arts Divine Church roared. The guest elders from Lineage of Star's faces grew grave. They were there by invitation, although they had said that they would try their best to help Lineage of Star surpass the danger. Once their lives were threatened, they would leave straight away. They had never thought of risking their lives for Lineage of Star. But now, it seemed too impossible to stop halfway. It's not just about the talk if you want to exterminate Lineage of Star. You have to rely on your fists too. Jian Wushuang sneered. You're right. If so, you shall see if our Star Extermination Alliance's fist is tough enough. Palace Master Wu Luo's face grew cold. Everyone, let's kill them. Die. Number 1 Divine King from Diving King Island roared. Whoever sides with Lineage of Star must be killed. The experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace, Real Martial Arts Divine Church, Highest Heaven Emperor Mansion, instantly took action. There were almost 70 almighties that swarmed in. There were towering Ori that filled in the air madly. There was a boundless divine power that formed storms that pressed at Lineage of Star. Every expert in Lineage of Star grew solemn and they felt pressured. Everyone, did you hear me clearly about the things that I told you earlier? Jian Wushuang looked at everyone behind him. The guest elders nodded simultaneously. If so, follow my instructions and charge. Just as Jian Wushuang spoke, his figure was the first that plunged out. Behind him, Emperor God Join, Emperor God Shenwu, Emperor God Gu Shui, Hall Master Gu Xian, Hall Master Nyayun and everyone else, including guest elders of Sir God level and the other Dao soldiers, charged. The 2 campsites fought against one another in the vast void outside Universe Galaxy. The war instantly exploded. Die! Jian Wushuang was raging with anger. He was the Palace Master of Lineage of Star then, and he naturally would be at the front. Swoosh! 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 There were 4 resplendent golden lights that soared up from the sky. The experts from both parties had yet to collide, but the 4 golden lights burst out like lightning. Simultaneously, the bloodline power in Jian Wushuang's body churned, and he immediately became black jade. There were heads and arms extending out, a total of 7 heads and 14 arms. Every single one of the 14 arms was holding a sword. The terrifying aura, along with soaring sword intention, swept out. Heaven and earth changed its colors as the highest heaven shook. Then Jian Wushuang pushed his power up to his peak. Jian Wushuang, your opponent is us. There was a sudden roar, and there were 3 figures that blocked Jian Wushuang simultaneously. The 3 of them were Palace Master Wu Luo, who was in a green robe and holding a hammer, number 1 Diving King, who was a brawny middle-aged man in crimson armor and holding a crimson saber, and Master of Real Martial Art Divine Church, who was malicious-looking. The 3 peak Emperor gods blocked Jian Wushuang. The last time I fought with you, I did suffer a minor loss. This time, I'm going to take it back. Palace Master Wu Luo looked with a cold glare. I heard of Sword Emperor's name long ago. It's my honor to finally see the number 1 genius of eternal chaotic world today. Number 1 Divine King said in a deep voice. Hee, you're only a real god, but you made the 3 of us who are peak Emperor gods team up. Sword Emperor, even if you die, you will die with pride. The Master of Real Martial Art Divine Church smiled maliciously. Humph, so what if there are 3 peak Emperor gods? If you want to fight, come on. Let's do it. Jian Wushuang sounded furious. Under the churning bloodline aura, he was like death. His huge body took a leap and appeared before the 3 peak Emperor gods. To fight against 3 people alone and 3 peak Emperor gods, Jian Wushuang showed no fear. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. There were 4 resplendent golden lights that flashed and appeared in front of Palace Master Wu Luo directly. This again. Palace Master Wu Luo's face grew in distress. In the previous battle, he had been in a miserable situation because of the 4 Hongjun golden sword. Then, as they were fighting, Jian Wushuang continued to aim the 4 Hongjun golden swords at him. Go away! Palace Master Wu Luo roared, and he swung the hammer in his hand. Just as Palace Master Wu Luo moved, number 1 Divine King and the Master of Real Martial Art Divine Church by his sides immediately attacked. Humph! Number 1 Divine King humphed, and his body suddenly increased in size by 100 times. A pair of cold eyes stared like 2 suns as boundless crimson fog swept out from his body. He held his saber with one hand, and the crimson saber was infinitely magnifying in his hand as well. Suddenly, there was a towering crimson saber shadow. The layer of saber shadows overlapped as though it was going to slash the universe into half. Quang! The saber light descended. Jian Wushuang could only feel the saber intention that was pressing on him from all directions. The power of the saber intention was rare. Ha! Come on! Jian Wushuang laughed hysterically. Among his 14 arms, there were 6 that wielded a sword at that very moment. Virum. Sword intention swept out along with boundless divine power. Reincarnation sword principle. The 6th move. 6 arms wielded the swords at the same time. There was a total of 6 sword lights. Every sword light was reincarnation sword principle that Jian Wushuang performed with his all. One should know that reincarnation sword principle that Jian Wushuang had invented was only 6 moves. The power of the 6th move was extremely powerful, and it took quite a lot of divine power to perform it. But in the fierce battle at such a level, Jian Wushuang, who was an inverse cultivator, his magnificent divine power was on display. Reincarnation sword principle, the 6th move, his 6 arms performed it all together and performed a total of 6 moves at the first instant. Bang! There was a loud bang, and there was a towering saber shadow that pressed over and immediately collapsed. However, the power of the collision had yet to disperse, and Jian Wushuang suddenly felt a bolt of destroying power spreading from above. He looked into the void above him, and there was a malicious-looking elderly standing there with a cold gaze while he pressed his hand down. Rumble. A huge palm print brought about boundless power. Suddenly, it was as though the entire universe had pressed down at Jian Wushuang. Break! There was a burst of sharp light in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Instantly, the sky above suddenly cracked, and there was a huge crack. In the crack, there was sacred thunder gathering, and there were bolts of life-destroying power that swept out. Then, walala! Life-destroying sacred thunder filled the air. There was a total of more than 1,000 life-destroying sacred thunder. At that moment, they merged together and hit the huge palm print. Along with a ferocious bang, all living things in the universe went quiet. Jian Wushuang, who was right in the middle of the band, Number 1 Divine King and Master of Real Martial Art Divine Church, weren't affected at all. There was a boundless collision of power, but the three of them fought together like lightning. Jian Wushuang's 14 arms wielded a sword each, and there was soaring sword intention. He put his improvement in comprehension towards sword principle at Emperor Sword Palace B in full play. Relying on his powerful strength, he fought in close combat with number 1 Divine King and the Master of Real Martial Art Divine Church. On the other side, he was still controlling the 4 Hongjun Golden Swords as they suppressed Palace Master Wu Luo, so that he didn't have the bandwidth to get involved with the other fights. The experts from both campsites started fighting too. Once they fought, they were in a ferocious fight. Fierce fight. It was a fierce fight that was worthy for the entire eternal chaotic world to watch. Including the Dao soldiers, there were more than 100 of them who possessed fighting power of an almighty that partook in the war. Just then, in the nearby void around the fierce fights, there were a large number of experts watching the war closely. Fought, the two campsites finally fought. They are fighting such a ferocious fight. Nonsense. There are more than 100 almighties that fought at the same time. How could it not be ferocious? Such a great war, it's hard to come by in the Second Era. I remember the last ferocious war happened many years ago. Then, there were forces and experts besieging the Master of Star Palace. In the end, the Master of Star Palace massacred them all alone. It's a pity that although the power that Lineage of Star possesses is strong, they didn't have terrifying techniques like the Master of Star Palace after all. It would be unrealistic if they wanted to match evenly with Star Extermination Alliance. The experts who were watching the war side emotionally, they could see the situation before them. Among the two campsites, Star Extermination Alliance obviously had the upper hand. There was a huge difference in the team formation of both parties. In terms of Sir Gods, although Lineage of Star had 30 Dao soldiers, at least 2 Dao soldiers would be required to just about match evenly with an ordinary Sir God. Accumulatively, Lineage of Star had over 30 fighting powers of Sir God, which was only half of Star Extermination Alliance's amount. In terms of the fighting power of Emperor Gods, they were far apart too. The 10 Emperor Gods from Star Extermination Alliance, forget about the 4 Peak Emperor Gods. There were another 6 of them, while Lineage of Star only had 3 Emperor Gods besides Jian Wushuang. Such a vast difference in power led to the one-sided situation since the beginning of the war. Lineage of Star was suppressed entirely, and there was almost no space for struggle. Although the battle had just started and Lineage of Star didn't suffer too much damage, in no time, there would be experts from Lineage of Star that passed away one after another. Utter defeat was only a matter of time. Lineage of Star shouldn't have walked out of their own lair. If they were to stay in their lair, they might have been able to match evenly with Star Extermination Alliance via their formation. But now, Lineage of Star's action isn't very wise. From the looks of it, Lineage of Star is going to be defeated. It is definite that they are going to be defeated. However, Sword Emperor from Lineage of Star is really impressive. Sword Emperor. Everyone who was watching the war focused their attention on the battlefield where Jian Wushuang and the other 3 Peak Emperor Gods were. When they saw Jian Wushuang and the other 3 Peak Emperor Gods in a fierce fight, it stirred up a great commotion in the expert's heart. With his power alone, he fought evenly with 3 Peak Emperor Gods. It seems that he doesn't have the lower hand much. Sword Emperor is very impressive. Palace Master Wu Luo, number 1 Divine King from Divine King Island, and also the Master of Real Martial Art Divine Church. Their names are famous and they have many techniques and skills. However, even when the 3 of them team up, they can't take down Jian Wushuang. Just how does Jian Wushuang cultivate? Isn't his improvement speed too fast? Everyone was surprised. They could see clearly that Jian Wushuang was fighting against 3 alone and he didn't have the lower hand. Such battle outcome shocked everyone. One should know that, on Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking list, only Underworld God, who was widely known as the number 1 Emperor God, had once fought evenly with 3 Peak Emperor Gods alone. However, not only had Underworld God matched evenly with the 3 Emperor Gods, but he had also defeated them directly and even killed 2 out of 3 of them. Jian Wushuang might not be comparable with Underworld God. However, he was about there. On the battlefield, the 3 Peak Emperor Gods from the enemy's side had teamed up, but couldn't do anything to Jian Wushuang. The three-peak Emperor God were furious. Don't waste any more time on him. Launch a full attack and kill him. If we don't take him down now, the three of our peak Emperor God's names will be ruined. Number 1 Divine King roared. All right. The master of real martial art Divine Church nodded heavily. As for Palace Master Wu Luo, he had the intention but not the will. He was fighting against Jian Wushuang's 4 Hongjun golden swords, and he was already going all out. Die! Number 1 Divine King roared, and he turned into a saber himself. A life-destroying saber that wanted to shake off the shackles of heaven and earth. The saber contained life-destroying aura that was enough to shock one's mind. As for the master of real martial art Divine Church, he looked imposing, and the aura that was soaring from his body was impressive. His eyes were like lightning. In one hand that he flipped open, there was boundless golden light flowing. Palm of real martial arts. Hong! The sky broke and the earth split. A huge handprint which was extremely imposing descended from above from nowhere. Palm of real martial arts was the strongest unique skill that the master of real martial arts Divine Church had created. There were 2 terrifying attacks that flew at Jian Wushuang at the same time. Ha! Come on! Jian Wushuang's eyes were bloodshot, but there was no fear. The billowing divine power and bloodline power were flowing out in madness. Before everyone's gazes, one of his hands slowly extended. On one of his fingers there was an intense black jade light. The black jade light seemed to light up the entire universe. Ancient God! The 8th finger! The universe finger! Hong! An ancient black jade finger suddenly attacked. Ancient God finger was the strongest move in terms of power in Ancient God unique skill. 9 fingers of Ancient God, each stronger than the last. Especially the last 3 fingers. Merely the 3rd finger, Vault of Heaven's finger, was already comparable with many unique skills that Emperor Gods had created. As for the 8th finger, 1 finger daunted the universe. The power was infinite. With 1 finger, the universe shook, heaven and earth broke apart. In an instant, it collided with the full hits launched by the 2 peak Emperor Gods. The terrifying power swept out. At that moment, all living things in the universe lost their colors. The bang that wasn't as loud as any of them had imagined. However, when they collided, there was instantly a merciless black hole that took form. The space black hole magnified infinitely to swallow up everything in the universe. The fierce divine power swept across wantonly. At the border of the battlefield, there were 4 Sir Gods who were fighting ferociously and 2 Dao soldiers that were swept out. The 4 Sir Gods got injured while the 2 Dao soldiers flew out. Swoosh! A figure flew across the sky like a shooting star. It flew about 10,000 miles until it finally stopped in the void. The figure belonged to Jian Wushuang. Although his face grew pale, his aura was still rather strong. Swoosh! 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 For Hongjun golden swords had already returned to his side. In the void far ahead of him, the 3 peak Emperor Gods stood side by side and their faces looked cold. The 3 of them had already gone all out and they had even performed their strongest unique skill, but they merely had the upper hand by a slight bit. They weren't even enough to injure Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's strength surprised the 3 peak Emperor Gods. If we were to fight with him one-on-one, any one of us could only flee in a fix when we met him. Number 1 Divine King couldn't help but say, forget about fighting him alone. Even if we were to team up in pairs, we wouldn't win against him, Palace Master Wu Luo said. If they only paired up, Jian Wushuang's 4 Hongjun golden swords would be freed, and then he could totally fight the 2 of them at the same time and he would definitely have the upper hand. However, the 3 of them made up a team of 3 peak Emperor Gods after all. Palace Master, we can't do this anymore. There was a sudden roar and Jian Wushuang's face changed as he looked around anxiously. Both campsites were fighting furiously. Although it was merely a short while, Star Extermination Alliance's advantage was magnified. Lineage of Star already looked like they were going to be defeated. Retreat! Without hesitation, Jian Wushuang immediately commanded them to retreat while he tried his best to open up a route for escape in order to help the experts and Dao soldiers from Lineage of Star to flee. Retreat! Retreat! Everyone from Lineage of Star immediately started to retreat. Everyone was decisive to retreat. They didn't delay any further. The experts from Star Extermination Alliance saw and let out a chilly gleam in their eyes. Haha, you want to retreat now? It's too late. Die. Everyone, head into the lair of Lineage of Star and kill everyone in Lineage of Star. Kill everyone. Don't leave anyone behind. Die. The experts from Star Extermination Alliance started chasing after them under the lead of the three-peak Emperor gods. Jian Wushuang led the experts from Lineage of Star to retreat into Universe Galaxy. Star Extermination Alliance naturally chased after them. Hall Master Yuan, it's your call now. Jian Wushuang sent a message to Hall Master Yuan. Don't worry. Let me take care of this. Hall Master Yuan's voice was solemn, but he was confident. Universe Galaxy was a treasure that Master of Star Palace had obtained from Seven-Star Realm. Although Universe Galaxy was severely injured, it was an ancient treasure after all. Hall Master, who was weapon spirit of Universe Galaxy, immediately started to revolve Universe Galaxy when he received Jian Wushuang's message. Although the humongous Universe Galaxy gave people a mysterious feeling, it never once revealed its true power. But then, as Hall Master revolved it, Universe Galaxy immediately transformed into a huge formation. The formation was mysterious and instantly cut off the chase of the experts from Star Extermination Alliance. They were blocked outside of the galaxy. Swoosh! 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 Jian Wushuang and the others appeared in the depths of Universe Galaxy, next to Hall Master Yuan. Jian Wushuang's soul power spread out and he could see the scene outside of the galaxy. He could see that the experts from Star Extermination Alliance outside Universe Galaxy had already started to attack the formation of Universe Galaxy. Hong! 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 There were deep, loud bangs that resounded continuously. As the entire Universe Galaxy was under attack, it started shaking faintly. Hall Master Yuan, can you withstand the attack? Jian Wushuang looked at Hall Master Yuan. Palace Master, don't worry. Attacking at such a level is merely scratching my itch. Hall Master Yuan joked confidently. Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows and said, the experts from Star Extermination Alliance are merely attacking in scatter. Universe Galaxy could withstand them easily. But if they were to concentrate their attacks together, such as all Almighties attacking one spot, then, Palace Master, just sit and watch me. Hall Master Yuan was very confident. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He naturally had never doubted Hall Master Yuan. At the border of Universe Galaxy, the experts from Star Extermination Alliance had originally wanted to barge into the depths of the galaxy and go right into the lair of Lineage of Star. However, just as they stepped foot into Universe Galaxy, they were blocked by the huge formation that was revolving. This formation is so powerful. I attacked personally, but I didn't even shake it. Palace Master Wu Luo creased his eyebrows slightly. Lineage of Star existed for so many years, and the old monster Old Star Palace even had the secret skill of Star Palace. Of course, he would have some solid foundation. The formation should be their last reliance. The master of real martial arts Divine Church said. Humph, you want to rely on the formation to block all of us outside? You must be dreaming. Number 1 Divine King from Divine King Island humphed coldly. Everyone, let's work together. Let's attack one spot all together. I'd like to see if the formation can withstand the hit of all Almighties together. Okay. The surrounding people nodded simultaneously. Very soon, almost 70 Almighties in Star Extermination Alliance launched an attack together. The Almighties launched attack one after another. In an instant, there were attacks that were performed from each and every one of them. Then, they hit on the same spot of the formation. Hong! An unprecedented bang reverberated in the entire galaxy. The huge Universe Galaxy was hit by the terrifying attack and it started shaking vigorously. In Universe Galaxy, the experts from Lineage of Star were watching the scene outside the galaxy anxiously, especially the guest elders. They didn't know what other trump cards Lineage of Star hid up their sleeves. Hence, all of them were anxious. From what they could see, the formation should be Lineage of Star's final reliance. Once the formation shattered, Lineage of Star would be facing a massacre by Star Extermination Alliance. The experts who accepted their invitation not only wouldn't receive the secret skill of Star Palace, their lives might even be threatened. But Universe Galaxy was really strong. Hall Master Yuan's confidence didn't come from nowhere. The experts from Star Extermination Alliance worked together and attacked the same spot. Universe Galaxy received an unprecedentedly heavy hit. However, after quivering for a while, Universe Galaxy once again steadied itself. There was no damage or any sign of it collapsing. The experts from Star Extermination saw the scene and they were in disbelief. How is this possible? All of us attacked the same spot together and we didn't manage to break the formation? The formation is so strong? Palace Master Wu Luo, number 1 Divine King, the master of real martial art divine churches, faces grew grave. In the galaxy. Blocked it. That's great. The guest elders from Lineage of Star were filled with excitement. Humph, like I said, unless a great emperor comes personally, no one can break the formation. Hall Master Yuan smiled coldly. He was the weapon spirit of Universe Galaxy and he naturally knew about Universe Galaxy the most. He knew clearly that although there were almost 70 Almighties that worked together to attack one spot together, the attacks of the Almighties were inconsistent with different strengths, as well as different characters. Hence, the power of the attack couldn't superpose flawlessly. In other words, the attack was messy and it couldn't concentrate. If the people of Star Extermination Alliance were to know a power superposition skill and combine all 70 Almighty's power together flawlessly, they might be able to pose a threat to Universe Galaxy. But as of now, Hall Master Yuan smirked. Jian Wushuang relaxed when he saw the scene in front of him. He turned around to look at everyone else and calculate the damage from the earlier fight. Lineage of Star had definitely had the lower hand in the fight earlier. Although the fight lasted for a very short time, there was one Sir God that had passed away. At the same time, there were a few Dao soldiers that were damaged. Besides, most of the people were injured. In short, it was a wretched sight. However, the outcome of the battle was exactly how Jian Wushuang wanted. Showed the white feather. He was showing the white feather. He wanted Star Extermination Alliance to think that Lineage of Star's fighting power was unworthy and only the formation was blocking them off. He wanted Star Extermination Alliance to take Lineage of Star lightly. Then, when Lineage of Star counter-attacked in full force, they could hit their vitals and hurt them badly. Hall Master Yuan only put the defense power of the formation on display. You only need to block the experts from Star Extermination Alliance outside the galaxy. Don't perform any attack techniques that Universe Galaxy has for now, Jian Wushuang commanded. I understood. Hall Master Yuan nodded. When Star Extermination Alliance reached Starland, they decided on the strategy. Then, everything was within the control of Lineage of Star. Now, Lineage of Star has to suffer for a while. However, the grievance can be wiped out very soon. Let the people from Star Extermination Alliance be smug with their success for a little longer. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Send a command down. From today onwards, no matter how Star Extermination Alliance taunts us, the experts from Lineage of Star won't take the challenge. Outside Universe Galaxy, the experts from Star Extermination Alliance were still trying to figure out a way to break the formation. No matter what tricks they pulled, even when the experts teamed up together, they couldn't move the formation even an inch. The formation was like an indestructible lofty mountain that blocked Star Extermination Alliance. In the vast void, the commanders of the 5 major forces gathered together again. Although the galaxy is strange, I never thought it could transform into such a powerful formation. We belittled Lineage of Star. I never knew Lineage of Star had such a trump card. The formation is so strong we couldn't break it at all. What should we do? The few commanders looked distressed. They didn't know the galaxy in Lineage of Star contained such a powerful formation. With the hindrance of the formation, as long as the experts from Lineage of Star didn't come out recklessly, no matter how many experts from Star Extermination Alliance there were, they couldn't do anything about them. Emperor God Tianling. Palace Master Wu Lu suddenly turned to a young man with snow-white hair who never spoke. In the fight earlier, why didn't you attack? Palace Master questioned him. Number 1 Divine King, the master of real martial art divine church, and I already teamed up to suppress Jian Wushuang. If you join us and attack him with your all, the accumulation of our power could definitely kill Jian Wushuang. The moment we kill him, Lineage of Star will lose their final mainstay and they will definitely collapse. Number 1 Divine King, the master of real martial art divine church and the master of highest heaven Emperor Mansion looked at Emperor God Tianling in dissatisfaction. When the experts from both campsites fought, the experts from Star Extermination Alliance attacked and most of them fought with their all but Emperor God Tianling. From the beginning until the end, Emperor God Tianling had been staying in the nearby void without moving an inch. Before the war ended and Lineage of Star returned to the galaxy, Emperor God Tianling had never fought. One should know that it was a great opportunity. If Emperor God Tianling were to seize the chance, they definitely could make Jian Wushuang die on the spot. Emperor God Tianling looked cold when he was being questioned by the others. 3 peak Emperor Gods teamed up and couldn't take down Jian Wushuang, who was only at real God level and had only been cultivating for less than 10,000 years. How dare you question me? Palace Master Wu Luo and the other 2 peak Emperor Gods were stunned. Emperor God Tianling, what do you mean? Palace Master Wu Luo said angrily. There's no issue. I only wanted to tell you that I disdain to besiege a real god with 3 other peak Emperor Gods. If I really want to attack, I will fight a fair battle with Jian Wushuang and kill him directly, Emperor God Tianling said. Hee. Kill him directly? Palace Master Wu Luo lifted the corners of his lips as disdain filled his eyes. When the next opportunity comes, the 3 of us will stand by side and watch. We shall see how Emperor God Tianling kills Jian Wushuang alone. Number 1 Divine King and the Master of Real Martial Art Divine Church sneered. They had tested Jian Wushuang's power personally. The 3 of them had teamed up and gone all out, but they could barely suppress him. If they were to fight one-on-one, which of them would be Jian Wushuang's match? Although Emperor God Tianling's ranking on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list was higher than the 3 of theirs, there should be a vast difference between his power and Jian Wushuang's too. Alright, everyone. It's not the time for arguments. Let us first think about how to resolve the formation in the galaxy. The master of highest heaven Emperor Mansion tried to mediate the situation. Humph? Palace Master Wu Luo humphed coldly and said, the power of the formation is unusual. I'm afraid only a great emperor could break the formation. Although there are many Almighties in Star Extermination Alliance, the Almighties couldn't concentrate all their power as one. In other words, it is difficult to do a hit similar to a great emperor's. However, if there were to be a power superposition skill that was able to concentrate all our Almighty's power into one, we might stand a chance to break the formation. Power superposition skill? The few experts at the scene exchanged a look. In Eternal Chaotic World, there weren't many of those power superposition skills. A power superposition skill that could concentrate almost 70 Almighty's powers as one would be even rarer. At least, among the 5 forces, no one had that kind of power superposition skill. We can only make use of our sex influence and find a power superposition skill. Before we find one, we could take some measures. The master of real martial art divine church looked around. Although the galaxy formation is strong, there is definitely a flaw or weak point. Among the experts in 5 forces, there are many who are good at formations. Let them study and figure out a way to resolve it. Once they find a flaw, we can also break the formation even without power superposition skill. Besides, before the formation breaks, we can't let Lineage of Star be at peace. It's obvious that they are trying to be a turtle hiding in their shells. If so, let's send our men to taunt and ridicule them outside the galaxy. Let's force them out of the galaxy. Hearing what the master of real martial art had said, Palace Master Wu Luo and the others nodded in agreement. At this point, that's all we can do, Palace Master Wu Luo sighed. The formation gives Lineage of Star time to recover. Number 1 Divine King felt regretful. At first, Star Extermination Alliance could have just barged into the lair of Lineage of Star directly and rooted out Lineage of Star. Then, their progress was stopped temporarily. Humph let Lineage of Star live for a while. In no time, when the formation collapses, the people from Lineage of Star can't escape. The master of real martial art divine church said coldly. The higher-ups of the five forces reached a mutual agreement. They sent their orders down. From then on, although the experts from star extermination had given up breaking the galaxy formation, they continued to come before the galaxy every day to hurl abuse, humiliate and taunt the people inside. They had no scruples and they were not worried at all. The context of the humiliation was extremely sharp in one's ear. In short, they were offensive. On the other hand, there were experts from star extermination who were good at formations, constantly walking around the border of the galaxy to inspect the galaxy formation so that they could find a flaw in the galaxy formation or maybe figure out a way to break the formation. Not only that, Star Extermination Alliance had also paid a great price to invite a few almighties that were truly good at formations in Sanctuary Alliance so that they could help to inspect the galaxy formation.